I to see 100 notifications about Amber Heard and Johnny Depp.
Well, that brings us, hello, everyone. Welcome to the stream. As you can see, we are joined tonight. I've got my colleague Marcus, who we ought to forgive him. He's still on the phone. He's pulling double duty. He's the hardest working man
He's working.
on Twitch, on Callin, on Korean porn websites that I won't put the links in the chat to.
I'm just want to smoke weed by myself without being bothered for a few more minutes. Thank you.
Okay, sorry. And of course, we are joined by Jake ROCKATANSKY this evening from the QAnon Anonymous podcast.
Hello.
Hello, Jake. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you this evening?
Oh, I'm excellent. I'm really excited for this. Thank you guys for having me. I think we're gonna have a really interesting, weird conversation about weird, interesting shit.
Oh, it was weird before we started, and it'll get even
Yes.
weirder. But what Jake's referring to actually is that we just got some news about the Amber Heard Johnny Depp defamation trial. So of course, this will be the next 4 hours. We're going to dissect the trial from start to finish, and Jake's going to provide a detailed analysis on the impacts to and implications of gender relations overall from the trial. So I hope you guys are ready for that, because I know it's a thing I'm very invested in and I really, really care about. So Jake, you ready to do that right now, man?
Yeah. Just let me try to remember really quick the 7 things that my wife has told me about the trial, and I will regurgitate that as best as I can.
I'm exactly the same. My wife spends time on TikTok and I do not, and she's like, I don't know why everyone's they show me all these Johnny Depp videos and Amber Heard
P.S.
videos.
Ted Cruz, go fuck yourself.
And I'm like, well, that's because you're watching them. Like, that's how that works.
It's because you're watching it all the time.
If you have,
there was one moment where my wife ran into the living room and she was like, I understand how people get pilled. And I was like, oh no.
Well, she knows you. How does she? I mean,
yeah.
I mean, speaking of that, that's
no. I've dragged her down into the muck of pilledness and then unpilledness. Early on in our relationship, it was a little bit more of a struggle, but now that we essentially, especially after COVID, in like a 1-bedroom apartment and in like the center of Los Angeles, over that like year and a half or so, like we've basically just like morphed into the same person.
Yep.
Which is great and also terrifying at the same time. It's a little bit more great than it is terrifying, I will say.
Well, you ended up getting married, so it just shows, Jake.
Yes, I did.
You're in love with yourself, is all that demonstrates,
Yeah, I remember once when I was working in like a clothing store. I was a retail sales associate because I was really bad in the food service industry. I just was not a good waiter. Like I have terrible ADD, undiagnosed, of course, and it didn't suit well for the job. And I also have a little bit of like OCD, so the food getting on me and getting dirty and cleaning it up afterwards just like didn't work for me. So I was like, I'll work with clothes. They're clean. They can't spill pasta sauce on your shoes or whatever. But there was like one guy. I remember I was like ringing up and I think I had just gotten dumped or something. And I was, kind of mopey. Mm-hmm. And the other sales associate, my friend, like turned to this guy and he was like, oh, my friend Jake just got dumped. Do you have any words of advice for him? And he was like, well, opposites attract, but only for so long. And then he bought like $1,300 worth of like clothes. And I was like, I was like, okay.
You're like, I want to be just like this guy now. He seems like he knows what's going on.
He knows what's going on. He can afford like the cashmere hoodie.
So Jake, you're in the food service industry. You went to retail.
Yes.
When did you? Because you're very open about this on QAnon Anonymous, which is one of my favorite pods by far. I have not missed an episode in years.
Well, thank you.
Since I've been introduced to it, because like I wanted to understand some things about QAnon, I was curious about it, and we'll get more into that about why that is and how we have this morbid fascination with this thing. But like,
sure,
you're very open about it on the pod about like how your window into QAnon was like you get a little bit pilled sometimes, you know, like
Oh,
you understand it.
definitely. And had I not found like true leftist content, I think it could have been very, very bad for me.
Yep.
I was always really interested in conspiracy theories. I was a freshman in college when 9/11, happened. And, I watched Loose Change. I watched all that stuff. Is when something so crazy happens, speaking generally, your brain wants to try to find a story, story that makes it all make sense. And I'd always been into the paranormal stuff. I was really into Ghostbusters is like my favorite movie, so I've always kind of just been open to the possibility that something kind of exists outside what is kind of like settled fact. And what happened was it was around, I would say, 2017. This was after Trump won, and I noticed that there was people referencing this thing called QAnon on on a Reddit board. It was on R Conspiracy, which I had subbed to for a really long time, which, believe it or not, used to be kind of apolitical. If you look at it now, it is like entirely anti-vaccine and New World Order, Soros stuff. It's really, really,
are those things
it's really sad that just in a very small amount of time, it came incredibly right-wing and political.
Can you give some examples of the things that were like mostly I'm assuming JFK, aliens, I don't know.
Yeah, sure. It was like JFK. It was like, the fun stuff, like the stuff that I end up covering a lot on QAnon Anonymous, which is like, inner Earth, like civilizations that live in inner Earth. Basically, prehistoric societies that were far more advanced than what we were, than we are now. Atlantis, like that kind of stuff.
Crab people.
Grew up in the '80s, so like Indiana Jones and Back to the Future, all that stuff. Presented these worlds where, where this kind of stuff. I just got sort of interested in these kind of plots. I guess we could say, and so I started noticing this, QAnon stuff sort of like, creeping into Reddit, and I started following it. And at the very early onset, what QAnon really was, it was before all the satanic panic stuff sort of set in. It was really this kind of espionage, this sort of like espionage story that essentially was that, that the law enforcement agencies had sort of like, fabricated this Russia story, as an effort to investigate Trump and all this stuff. And the thing was, for me, is that I was no fan of Donald Trump by any means, but I was also no fan of like federal law enforcement agencies. And so there was a piece of me that was like, well, fuck yeah, like of course they're going to cut corners or make up something like to keep a guy who they believe, and I also believe, shouldn't be president out of the, like that makes perfect sense to me. I was also really mad at the DNC for what I had perceived was complete sabotage of Bernie Sanders' campaign. And me being like a spiritual person, I'm like,
that wasn't perceived though. They admitted that.
Yes, of course. At the time, I mean, we know now. I mean, more facts have come out now, obviously, but at the time, it was a feeling, And me being a very kind of spiritual person, I'm like, yo, a bird fucking landed on the dude's podium, like what? And a fly landed on Mike Pence's forehead. Like, what more do we need? And so there was this sad, there was a sadness and there was anger, and QAnon was there too. And at the time, it was the only content that I was reading that was saying, hey, the system is rigged, it is fucked up, this is, the intelligence apparatus and, the political status quo can, can like do you in, if they don't like you, they can do you in. And I that really resonated with me. And then what happened was, well, I told Julian about it. We were already trying to do a podcast about like this like hell future landscape that we were we knew that we were headed towards. We could feel it. Mm-hmm. And we had episodes that, stuff like, in I think it was Japan, that, actors being hired to play family members at weddings and family events that they didn't appear like lonely. It was still in this kind of like weird space. And I told him about QAnon, and he was like, that's really interesting. And the whole podcast really started on the premise
Ted Cruz,
of
go fuck yourself.
The kind of hiding, this is maybe not the best word, but the ignoring the real sort of left-wing sort of constituents in America, that by completely ignoring that, they were funneling people towards conspiracy theories. And we each thought it was like a really interesting conversation. And then the QAnon subreddit got kicked off of Reddit, and they moved to Vote, which is basically like an uncensored version of Reddit. It's like an anonymous, it's like a like a shitty sort of like copy. I don't even know if it's still popular, but they moved to Vote. And I went over to Vote to be like, okay, what are these people talking about now that their accounts are not connected to like a real email or a potential thing? And like 9 out of 10 posts were about Jews.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, me being a Jewish person myself, and I had a lot of my grandmother's family was murdered in the Holocaust, and I went to Hebrew school. I had a bar mitzvah. I'm not like the most religious person. Like I don't go to shul or anything, but it was a huge part of my upbringing. And I went, oh, wait a minute. Like, this is really bad. Like, this is basically just repackaged, like anti-Semitic conspiracies that are, because every now and again on the old conspiracies board, you would come across that stuff. Yep. And people would be like, come on, man. Like, blaming the Jews for everything is like, come on, there would be pushback against it. And so you would be like, oh, there's a little like ugly corner of this conspiracy community. But here I saw that this was 90% of the posts were being made. And just like the first act of like an apocalypse movie or like a horror movie, the moment I realized how bad it was, I also realized how quickly it was spreading. And basically the rest is history. It's like the moment I was like, oh, this is like really, really dangerous. That's when I noticed it was gaining even more grounds and spreading to different sort of, kind of conspiracy. Because I'd never go on the Chans. I'm not like a Chan person. I'm not a lurker or anything. I just not really interested in going there. And I'm also kind of in like that old school thing, like if I go to 4chan, like my computer's gonna get a virus.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you're gonna, like I'm always scared. I'm gonna like if you go to 4chan, like I want to see some of the dumb memes these people come up with, or like maybe you can stumble upon a green text in the wild, instead of just seeing a screen cap of it. But then I'm like, no, I'm going to scroll down and it's going to be like a guy chopping his nuts off or something in a video like on here. Like that was the horror stories I heard about 4chan was like there would just be like the most sick like gore, the shit that would be happening when you would just be scrolling through all of a sudden.
Like the old school like rotten.com or like E-Bombs world or whatever, where it was just that shit with no
go ahead, Marcus. My opinion, on 4chan. That's like the Nazi website, yeah.
I mean,
so
I would
the reason why I don't go on 4chan and never was curious is because every time I ask, hey, that's the Nazi website, right? People go, yeah, that's it. So like I'd want to know part of it.
Well,
and I want no part of that either. And just the way it looks it's just like it's like a vomit colored backsplash, and the way the writing is, it's just like, oh God, like I could not be bothered. That's why we have a Travis View and a Julian Field who they can go on there and it does not affect them in the same way that it does me. So
speaking of that, so you and Julian like get onto the QAnon shit like pretty early. Like you said,
right.
You start poking your head down the rabbit hole a little bit, like, hey, what's going on here? And then you're like, immediately see the happy merchant rubbing his hands together, and you're like, well, fuck,
yeah,
maybe this isn't the thing that I want to be involved with.
And you know, the fucked up thing is, and you know, just for full transparency, you know, when you get into these kind of conspiracies or any conspiracy, you want to spread it, you want to tell your friends, you want somebody in real life to look back at you and go like, yeah, man, maybe that's that, because it validates it, and it also satisfies that little piece of your soul that knows that there's something bad that you're doing, or something untoward that you're sort of pushing. And so, like, I had to go back to a handful of people, a handful of group chats, and essentially be like, this is actually bad. I know I told you guys to look into this because like it was really interesting, and maybe could result in something, some kind of, I don't know, great awakening, I guess. I was like, it's actually bad, and I'm actually starting a podcast that's like about how bad it is. And that's tough. It's always tough to have to tell people around you or strangers on the internet, whatever, that you've changed your mind about something, but it's good. I think everybody should feel so comfortable just change. It's okay to change your mind. It's okay to realize that something that you were interested in or believed in, even just a couple months ago, that you're like, or even if it's been for years, you'd be like, you know what, I was wrong about that. There's really like no shame. There's really no shame in admitting you were wrong or admitting that you have new information.
Yeah.
What's the line where he's like, new information has come to light, man. But yeah, that's basically the story. And then we found Travis, who was one of the few other people on Twitter. There was Mike Rothschild was looking into it. Yeah. Will Sommer at the Daily Beast, and Travis Few was this kind of just a
guy,
anonymous Twitter. He was like I thought it was his real name for a really long time, but he was just an anonymous Twitter account that was kind of really laser focused on QAnon and being super critical. And the reason for that was because he had cut his teeth on the boards back in the day, like arguing with young Earth creationists. Yep. And like loved like fighting these people online. And so QAnon in a lot of ways felt similar to him. So he was like, oh yeah, like this is another like community to sort of push back on. And we basically had him on the show as a guest, and he drove up from San Diego. It took him like 3 hours. He came into the studio. He came on as a guest, and it was so good. The show was instantly so much better because it wasn't just like, like a super lefty and like me, like, a struggling sort of conspiracy theorist trying to make sense of this whole thing. He added a kind of like an anchor of what's the word? A sort of he kind of grounded the whole thing and brought that really, really great skeptic perspective.
Well, the dynamic changed, and you're absolutely right. Like as soon,
for sure.
Like and that's what one of the things I love so much about your podcast, and I like obviously there's a lot of skill involved there, but like the luck that had to bring all of you together, like, and have established the dynamic that you have, like in the way you guys play off of each other. It's so much more than a podcast about QAnon, because you guys are characters exploring this thing and teasing each other about it, which is like I think similar to kind of what I like to think that we do as well. We bust each other's balls a lot.
Chops.
And like Mark, like I said, we were talking about this before the show, but like I think Jake and I probably have, in terms of archetypes within the structure, the triumvirates, Jake and I are probably closer in this triumvirate as those archetypes, like, because I like to fuck off and be a clown, because that's how I cope,
Yeah. Same.
And to make up ridiculous, like I will just text these guys randomly, like I can't get the thought out of my head that like Trump loves Morbius. It's just like Trump, like Dr. Michael Morbius. Everyone loves him. He's a living vampire, folks. You know.
I don't know why everybody is. I don't know why everybody is so critical of the movie. I thought it was a lovely film.
Exactly.
I think Jared Leto is a great actor. He's great.
They're trying to cancel.
And you know, this is maybe one of the best movies released this year, or potentially of all time.
Hey, folks, guess what? Bring it in. It's Morbid time.
So yeah, I mean, the dynamic on the show is incredible. And then obviously, as you guys get bigger, you bring in Liv Agar, who I also like independently already loved. Like, she was streaming on Twitch and was hilarious at posting already. And then you got Annie, your UK correspondent, brought into the show. And like the dynamic of the show hasn't changed. It's just expanded in this way that's it's really incredible. Like it's really an impressive piece of like of media that I think is like emblematic of like what the internet can be in like a good way. Like the way that you guys dissect this thing that is deeply poisoned and try to package it for people to understand, you know, and which it would be very easy just to make fun of these people, but like that is too easy. That would be the way that like that would be lazy to do it that way. But not only that, but like you guys, that's not in your guys' hearts. Like you have real compassion for people who end up going down this rabbit hole in ways that like I don't think a lot of people would consider otherwise if you guys hadn't reminded them that's important to be that way, you know?
And if I could pull Dick off of you real quick.
Oh, shut up.
Which, you know, and that's always like QAnon, at least the official Q at some point had like quit, you know, and mentioned, you know, hey, maybe QAnon's just the friends we made along the way, but it seems that the podcast kind of imbibes that.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I really appreciate that because it's weird. It's a weird thing, especially I had an entertainment background. You know, I always wanted to make film and television. That was always, you know, my dream. And so, you know, all of a sudden having this podcast and being like, well, is this even like the medium that I'm interested in, or I don't know. And the thing is like there was no real moment along the way where I made any kind of decision that it got me to where I am now. And you mentioned Liv and Annie, like that's a great example. Like they initially came and just did episodes for us. Like they were like, oh, we connected with them. And they were like, you know, we were like, oh, we found them. And we're like, it'd be great if you did an episode about this, that, or the other thing. And just like with Travis, it was just such a good match. It's just there's so much luck. You know, it was lucky that, you know, like Dick was saying, like it was so lucky that me, Julian, and Travis got along well. Then it was additional luck that Liv and Annie just sort of meshed so well with the group. And it really is. It's just kind of one of those things that I could never have planned for or sort of tried to orchestrate. And it just kind of happened. And kind of like QAnon, it just sort of took all, you know, we never ever thought that it was going to be as big as it was, you know, as big as it got, you know, especially leading up to something like Jan 6. Which was crazy. It's crazy to see this little guy, you know, this little tadpole in the dish, like grow into like a Godzilla type creature, and feeling incredibly unqualified to be the ones talking about it. And it just, for years, it was like, well, if nobody else is going to say shit about us, like, you know, I guess we'll try to keep like wading through the muck.
Can I ask you, because for one thing, you know, I'm just kind of curious about the amount of work, and that's it's like I've watched, you know, Julian's stream, and you know,
Julian's Goose Gang represent
rated it a few times while I've been streaming. special guy, right? You know,
Yeah,
he's his own man.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. Very special dude. Very special man.
what I guess I'd be curious to like, what is the type of work that goes in to find out what the fuck is going on with QAnon? Because and like from my perspective, like yeah, like I used to work in government, like that's how I know about government. How do
Yeah.
you find out about these things?
It's, I think each of the hosts has their fingers in different pots, kind of watching them and subscribing to various communities. A lot of it nowadays honestly is just like real reporters who kind of
Yeah.
realized that this was a bad thing and really started to cover it with a skill set that we didn't have. So I would say the last couple years, a lot of what we talk about just comes from like great reporting. And then if we can, we try to have whoever wrote the piece or is the primary researcher on to discuss it with us. But in the early days, it was just kind of lurking around in the sort of like conspiracy community muck and finding things that were starting to finding things that were bubbling to the surface. And yeah, different people watch different areas. Like I've always been sort of like in the sort of like Reddit conspiracy space, the video game conspiracy space, just things that I kind of was naturally already into, but keeping a special eye towards, this kind of stuff now. Julian, what I mean, the Julian is the hardest working. I mean, despite his squirrely demeanor, he's the hardest working person on the show, and I have no problem saying publicly that I think his vision and his artistic talent in terms of producing and editing and how the episodes are structured really, I think, is a huge part of why it's listenable, for lack of a better word. And we write out everything. Like it's basically the show is kind of like being in your senior year in high school and like having like 2 term papers due a week essentially, because the documents end up being like 20 to 30 pages long. And like I have nights all the time where I've waited till the last second to try to hone in on a topic because you want to do something that's kind of relevant. And now I've got like a 20-page like paper to write or a movie to watch and discuss. So it's definitely a lot of like writing work. Sometimes I wish that we had established ourselves as the show that just like got to discuss stuff like Chapo or other podcasts in a similar space. But it's good. It's good. I mean, it saves us a lot of like editing room because everything is so written out and planned, and then we kind of just get into the studio and perform it, and then we'll ad lib around. We'll have little discussions as stuff comes up, but that's just kind of how the show started, and we just kind of got into that mode, so that's how it's continued to be.
Well,
yeah, it's wild.
And to clarify too, Marcus, like Jake's role in QAnon Anonymous often, I mean, he's there talking about providing analysis and stuff about like whatever bit of new QAnon shit has come out or whatever deeply poisoned, newly relevant theory that comes out of the QAnon community comes out. He's there, but Jake's real, joie de vivre, his contribution comes at the end of the episode. There's a Jake story where Jake will provide a short work of fiction that incorporates like a bunch of different characters into usually it's a way to process the new bit of QAnon nonsense that's come out, like Sebastian Gorka, but he's he's in Metal Gear or something. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Yeah, basically fusing like the pop culture shit that I love, that I grew up on, and sort of, yeah, just transplanting the QAnon lore into these worlds. And I don't even know how that I don't even know how that started. I think it started was because, like, Travis and Julian are both like really good researchers, and I can be too if I'm if I'm really interested in something. But I was always kind of like, well, what's like what's my contribution? I've always been a creative writer. That's what I've been doing for, the last, 10, 15 years. And my mom's an English teacher. And, so I sort of, I basically based it on like the old shadow radio plays.
Yeah.
Because we did a unit when I was in elementary school. We did a unit, one of my favorite units of all time. I had this really awesome history teacher, and we did a whole unit on the shadow, and like we listened in class to all of the old radio plays, and it was awesome because it was like a time in school when you didn't have to do any work. You just got to like listen to a story. So I naturally loved it, and I was like, nobody's really doing that, and it would be an opportunity to do some kind of satire. And I think at the time I also was thinking, well, like maybe in some ways, if I come up with an equally as goofy a story as, the QAnon people have, but try to have it kind of shine a light on how ridiculous all of this stuff is. I hoped maybe, sometimes the best way that we can kind of heal ourselves or change our minds is to be able to laugh at ourselves. And so that was kind of always the goal, I think, from the beginning with those.
And my favorite bit of Jake's stories is when, and you'll appreciate this, Marcus, is like, because Julian gives Jake a lot of shit on the show, but Jake gets his comeuppance in the story because every time Julian is just like a disgusting swamp creature or something, and he's like, you have to talk like Gollum, and Julian's like, hello, master, and he's like attached to a chain or something.
So yeah, because it's like I'm in control. It's like I get to, he doesn't have a choice. It's already been written out. He's got no choice. He's got to read it.
Yeah,
it's so good. And
the
Julian,
dungeon master,
and it's also good because, like you said, Julian edits the episodes, but Julian will keep in his maniacal laughter, and your laughter too when you get to a part that's especially like Jake will be like, I don't remember writing this. It was 3:30. Like, I didn't remember that I wrote this. Maybe you should cut this out. But yeah, I mean, it's everything from, like I said, Sebastian Gorka as like in charge of a band of like commando bears or anthropomorphic animals to General Flynn is in India, is like a Sean Connery and Indiana Jones type character. Named Flora Flynn. It's amazing.
Where, I guess like the question is like, where's QAnon now? Like where's, if we get a, because then also too, like I know that you wanted to ask us.
Oh yeah, questions. I got like a billion questions.
So,
so
I'm very curious as to like, what's your take, or like, what's your analysis on where's QAnon now? And I mean, like, and also too is like, where do you think it's going? At some point you saw this could be going somewhere. Where is it now? And where do you think
this is the question, Jake. It's you guys get all the time, all of you, right?
Well, and those who listen to the show know that we really try not to make predictions. Mm-hmm. That is, I think, the thing that I am most proud about our show is that we don't do a ton of speculation. One, because I hate speculative media. I think that is, in a lot of ways, it's contributed to the kind of huge surge in conspiracies in both, the far right and to Democrats too. I think that your political affiliation does not protect you from being able to be swept up in conspiracy theories. And I think a lot of it has to do with, you know, these kind of panels that sit around and they tell you where they think it's going, or, you know, what they think is going on, or what they think this indictment means, or what they think this grand jury impanelment means. And really, you're doing QAnon. In the early stages, it was all about the justice system is going to solve everything. And you can just sit back in your seats, you know, you're watching a movie, get your popcorn. These were all things that were, these were all things that were, you know, huge staples in QAnon terminology and ideology. But what we're seeing, I think that's really scary, is that you don't need to. That QAnon is just. It's been folded into your kind of general sort of GOP policy now. That's really crazy to think about, because if you look at like Democrats, and they are in very many ways unwilling to fold anything further left of them into their their kind of policy, whereas the right is like, oh yeah, cool, that's working, that's getting people energized, absolutely, we will fold that shit in. And so what I think is what I think that we're seeing is just, you don't even need QAnon anymore. It's kind of a wink and a nod. Maybe you've got a Q pin on your pad, or you've got a bumper sticker or whatever, but your mainstream Republican senator is spouting, things that are, basically more or less on par with the sort of QAnon narrative. And I think that, I think Q is just kind of a very quick way to sort of hip check somebody else and be like, oh yeah, Q, about Q. Okay, cool. We're in the same, we're in the same sort of, we're in the same kind of, we have the same beliefs, essentially.
The shit's baked in now. Like the DNA has fused. It's there.
It's there, and I don't know exactly when that happened. I think it's been slowly happening over time. And I also think that, these a lot of politicians are just dumb. They're killed by this shit too. Yeah. I look at some of like the coverage on Ginny Thomas, right? The Supreme Court, the Supreme Court Justice, Clarence Thomas's wife, who was texting Mark Meadows and stuff. And, I see some people being like, well, she was orchestrating the coup. And I look at the text message, I'm like, no, she was just pilled on QAnon shit, and was like, what you do when you're pilled on QAnon is you want to tell everybody about, you want to make it to you also, you want to either check if they also believe in it, or, she thought, well, maybe, if I believe in QAnon, well, this senator surely will know that it's real and give me some kind of validation. So I think that a lot of these people are just pilled on this stuff. They believe, more or less. Maybe they don't believe like the most crazy stuff, but they do, because like they're all kind of, a lot of them are hardcore Christians who already believe that, like, the apocalypse is going to happen in Jerusalem and they're going to get like lifted up in a ray of sunshine. I mean, if you believe in that, then the QAnon stuff like isn't that much further of a, leap. So yes, it has become completely baked in. And my speculation, and I want to be clear that I think that this is speculation, it comes from me only, and it comes from an entertainment standpoint. I think that QAnon as an IP is too good to let go. So I believe that at some point in the future, we will see a return of either the person who was posting as QAnon, or the handful of people that were posting as it initially, or somebody new will pick up the torch and do something similar. It was too effective. It's too good an IP to discard. And I am personally worried that it will make a resurgence in the lead up to the 2020 election, or the 2024 election.
P.S. Ted Cruz, go fuck yourself.
I think, I don't know. That seems some pretty good speculating from someone who claims to not do no speculating.
I know. Well, that's what I think.
That makes a lot of sense.
These are the whispered once we hit press the stop record button on the thing. These are the things that I will just bark at. I will bark at Travis, and he goes, that could be possible. He's so measured, and he's he's so good. But just from a marketing standpoint, I feel like it's too good a brand. That's like if Coca-Cola was like, you know what? No more polar bears around Christmas time.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to do something new, a new animal. Otters, maybe.
This is just, Jake's putting his producer hat on. He's like, we're gonna dust this bad boy off and wring some money out of this. The Power Rangers need to be in a AAA movie again.
Well, it's going to be my goal to just undermine the resurgence of QAnon. By just telling him that it's actually you're the wizard behind the curtain. You said you were going to do it when you predicted it on this very stream.
Yeah.
And you'll notice that QAnon is all of a sudden posting more like lefty memes.
Yeah, exactly. Everything I'm going to point out.
Time, just trying to.
No, I don't know. That seems very scary, but also. Thank you for what you do.
Well, also we should announce tonight our project, because we're talking about dusting off old IPs. Jake and I are working on the Metal Gear movie script together. It's a new project. We're very excited about it, and we're kind of motivated by Oscar Isaac saying the other day they're looking for a script. So Jake and I will be unveiling that soon. We're very confident that we're gonna have a full sit down with the director. We're storyboarded.
There's a lot of Metal Gear lore to sift through. We got a lot, and I need to catch up on the later games. I did not play too much of Metal Gear 4, which was Sons of the something, which was Old Snake.
No, it's Guns of the Patriots, Jake.
Sons of the Patriots.
Guns,
that's right.
Guns of the
Patriots. God, Metal Gear is so pilled. I'll bet if we went back and looked at all of the old Metal Gear lore, we'd be like, wait a minute, this got folded into QAnon somehow.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot in there that, like, the influence of Metal Gear is there for sure. Like you said, at the beginning, QAnon was like, it's military intelligence, tactical espionage action. It's like. I have it sounds like a codec call, like it's very, the influence is there. You can hear it even if it's not explicit. Like, it's somebody like you or me who was playing that shit, when we were 13 or something, and just being like, oh, and just like totally subsuming it into our pop culture references. I think that, there's some of it there, because it's like a cool secretive thing. There's bad guys, there's very clear bad guys and very clear good guys, but then there's like double crosses and things hidden in the shadows that you couldn't even have predicted, and everything is like, and in the end it's like, oh, we were being fooled the whole time, it was actually this, like all of that is part of that conspiracy mindset that, like, is baked into that kind of content, and then that what art imitates life, and it's a vicious cycle.
Well, and Snake was such a cool character. I mean, David Hayter, his voice and the way he brought Snake to life, plus the graphics. Like, I remember playing the first Metal Gear and being like blown away. But then I remember when the second Metal Gear came out, and I was like, that on PS2?
Dumps, big massive dumps.
That the second Metal Gear came on?
Yeah, that was PS2. It came out right after 9/11 too. A real quick thank you, Culture.tv, for the raid with Party of 32. Welcome. We are interviewing.
Thanks, Culture.tv.
We are interviewing our good friend Jake ROCKATANSKY from QAnon Anonymous right now, and we're talking about Metal Gear. Yeah, Metal Gear Solid 2 came out. That was Sons of the Patriots, and that came out right after 9/11. And that was the big switcheroo where you thought you were going to play a Snake the whole time, and it was just the tanker part at the beginning, and then you got to be the
Raiden.
The blonde-haired whiny boy.
Yeah. That game. I not so secretly, like, want my career to be like, I mean, we'll keep doing the podcast as long as we need to, obviously. But what I secretly want to be is like the guy who they go to for all the video game, like movie or TV show movie, preferably. TV is a lot of work. You gotta write a lot. Movie is like 90-page script or it's not as much work.
This is how we sell your bona fides there, Jake. We get the Metal Gear movie made, and then you become the guy, the go-to.
Like, for example, I think every video game movie, they tried to do it with the original Doom, but like it didn't quite work because the technology was there. But I think in a video game movie, you need at least one sequence that mirrors the gameplay. So if we're doing a Metal Gear movie, there's got to be one scene where the camera like shoots up to the bird's eye view and you watch Snake go down the hallways and like take out guys from that thing, just so people can go, oh, cool, it's just like the game. And then you can go back. But I think every video game movie needs like one piece. I mean, I think you could do really cool stuff nowadays with the like either drone, like you could program a drone essentially to follow an actor at a certain height and essentially get a third person camera. They almost did it in that Neil Blomkamp movie with Sharlto Copley as the bad guy, Elysium, I want to say. Yeah. I want more of that. I want more video game sequences in movies, which is weird because the whole reason you're playing a video game is because you're in control of the action. Why would you want the video game camera when you can't control anything? I don't know. Maybe it's just a visual thing.
I'm thinking we can do this in the tank fight when he fights Vulcan Raven. It's outside, so you can get the drone up, So you can get that angle where the turret shoots him and then he does a little flip and like, and slides through the snow. We can get Oscar Isaac on some wires. We can recreate that sequence, and then it's perfectly reminiscent. You got the tasteful, because Hideo Kojima makes very cinematic games.
He does.
Marcus,
he wants to direct a movie eventually.
Right? Marcus, you know what we're talking about, right?
Yeah. This is great.
Metal Gear Solid. Yeah, there's like 6 games now.
It's cool.
Yeah. Anyways, let's.
Maybe this is a good time for us to flip, and I can pick your guys' brains about being in the military. And maybe we could just start with kind of like each of your journeys. I don't know if it's redundant for viewers, but I would like to know like kind of how you got in, what was happening at the time, what's the story?
Marcus, you want to go first? I just talked a lot. Sure. I just talked a lot, so it's your turn.
So I was there. I was playing Metal Gear Solid. Guns of the Patriot,
mine's actually going to start this way.
So for me, I was basically, it came to a realization that I was probably going to die extremely young if I kept doing what I was doing, which was just like I was a bartender, and I spent most of my days just like drunk while I'm working or going to bars while I'm not. My dad was in the military. He fixed hospital equipment in the Army. He never deployed, never left the country, but I just, like, and actually too, is like, I didn't really grow up with him in the Army, right? He got out when I was like a pretty young kid, but he went on to fix hospital equipment. That idea of like, oh, hey, like you could join the military and like learn how to do something. But then also there's like that dumb meathead mentality that I had where I was like, well, I'm going to be better than my dad, join the Marine Corps. This was 2009, I think, when I started up like the paperwork and shit like that.
So what did you do? Did you just go to like a recruitment office, or can you sign up online, or?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think I like Googled like, Marine Corps, and it's like, oh, hey, you call this number. And then, it's like, oh, hey, you got to show up to this place. And it's like recruiting offices, that you'll see like armed forces recruiting is like what they usually, have now, like the little American flag or whatever. Mm-hmm. But they'll have like multiple, usually I have most of the branches there. But went in there, talked to them, and actually fucking popped hot on gave me a piss test beforehand. And I still like popped hot from smoking weed, so he's like, "All right, you gotta wait a little bit longer." But then eventually it was like,
that's the one the recruiter has in the
Damn,
office.
that's crazy.
Right?
He was like, I know you've been smoking weed currently, but if you would like to just wait a little bit longer so it's out of the system, then we'll.
I mean, he asked me, he was like, yeah, you smoke, you're like doing it. I was like, yeah, I have before. And he's like, should we do one beforehand? And I was like, that might be beneficial, right? And then we went from there.
Because that's the insidious thing recruiters do, is that like they know that they don't want you to go to the official test and fail, because then it's like problems for them on the paperwork. So they have them just in their desk, and they just like go piss on this fucking stick or whatever, and then like come back. Oh no, you're not ready to go do the official test.
Damn, it's like a pre-piss test.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. But I mean, I did pretty good on the ASVAB, and I could do like pretty much.
What's the ASDAB?
ASVAB. Oh shit, that's the test.
You're doing ASDABs with your recruiter in the office.
Yeah, I've done some ASDABs before. It did not go so
well. So I did pretty like good. I could have done anything. This is how you know I'm extra dumb, is because I scored high enough to do anything in the Marine Corps. I could have gone intelligence or whatever the fuck, right?
Yeah.
And I was like infantry. That's what I'm doing.
The most hardcore, easiest chance of getting killed.
Yeah.
And were you thinking kind of like, you were like, well, I'm basically already dead anyways. Like at least if I do it this way, there's like more glory involved.
Literally. So this is kind of like weird. And like, I don't know if I've like even talked about this on stream, right? So peeling back the curtain, Jake, you just do it to me.
This is what I do, baby.
I've talked to my, like my family about this, but even like after the fact, after I got out of the Marine Corps, I didn't think I was gonna I thought I was gonna die in my mid-20s. I just had this idea that I was gonna die in my mid-20s, and
I can relate to that.
And that's what I was trying to do. It's like, yeah, when like being just like hammered a bunch, I was like, I just had this realization that it was like, well, I'm either gonna die in like some like drunk driving accident, or I could be useful to my country and freedom and all this type. But like I didn't know. It was just like, hey, my dad joined this. This thing. And
if I can interject really quick, I can relate to that feeling, and I sometimes wonder if the sort of condition that our current sort of society is in, it was always really hard for me, even as just like regular person, to be able to imagine any kind of future.
Yeah.
And so I can totally relate to that. Just not being, I mean, I've had to like talk about it with my therapist. Is like, there was so many times throughout my life, especially in my 20s and early 30s, where I couldn't even conceive of a future where I was still alive, let alone doing something that made me happy.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the thing. It was like, if I make it out on the other end of it, like, I'll have, I guess in like back of my head, like I also thought like somehow I'd still be able to have some transferable skill, like my dad did, because he fixed hospital equipment professionally after that.
Right.
Great paying job, benefits, all this shit. Not so much with the infantry there, but
I used to say there's no call for a good M240 Bravo gunner in the civilian world, Like I can fucking hit an area target at like 600-700 meters with the fucking machine gun, but like how is that gonna help me?
Yeah. I think the closest thing I got was like I Googled like SWAT teams.
Yeah. Right.
And there was like, but it's like you got to be a cop first.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not being a fucking cop.
Yeah, I just want to go straight to the fucking back of the APC or whatever. Like,
exactly.
Basically, here's my resume. Like, I served this many tours of duty or whatever. Just like let me on. I don't have to do all the cop shit.
Yeah. But there's only like one or two states, and I don't know if this has changed, but yeah, there's only like one or two states that I did not live in and was not going to move to. But after that, I was just like, well, that was a waste of 6 years. Like you gotta figure out something else to do with this body. So
you took the pre-piss test, and they were like, too much weed, young man. They were like, if you'd like to come back in 14 days time. And that must have been kind of fucked up too, where you like went back home and you're like, damn, all right, well, I gotta like not smoke weed. Like, do they care about alcohol? I'm guessing not.
Oh, no. It's only the things that'll show up on,
right,
like literally like a piss test that you could buy at the pharmacy. They actually maybe buy another one.
They were like, we're not wasting one more of our in-desk tests.
Yeah,
we only get a couple of these, all right? You got to go buy your own.
What a fucking piece of shit.
That is so fucked up.
Oh, my God. That's crazy.
I mean, they're like $10. I don't know.
Whatever. So, so you went and got it, and then what?
Well, I mean, after that, you get into what's called the delayed entry program. And I think initially this was like one of two ways to get into the military. There's a more immediate way. And then there's like the delayed entry, but now it's just like like I don't like now it's just that, right? You sign the paperwork and there's a certain, at least 3 months, but it's like sometimes it'd be 6, it'd be a year, depending on what job openings you have.
I'll be right back, guys.
Oh, cool. But yeah, so basically it's like you're going through these different workouts with the group of other, what they call poolies. And the Marine Corps is a little bit different, I think, than the other branches, in which case, like, they're a little bit more strict. It's a little bit more, I don't know, fucking just aggressive in its military culture.
Because that's the reputation, is that like the Marines are like the like cream of the crop, toughest of the top. So they've got to perpetuate that on all levels, I would imagine.
Yes. So, and that's where, I would say, looking back, the thing that the Marine Corps is the best at is marketing. As far as operational fucking execution, like what the fuck does that even fucking mean, right?
Yeah.
Like the United States government rolls through utilizing all of its branches to dominate the world, There's no like which one does it better. So
just different arms of the same branch, essentially.
Yeah. So because oh man, that thumb really got me when Mike Tyson punched me in the face. Those other fingers, they didn't really do. No, it's the fist. It's the fist punching you in the face.
Yeah.
But no, what the marketing or what Marine Corps does best is marketing as this, elite thing. And basically it's just small differences. Hey, boot camp's a week or two longer, some of the physical fitness tests, they're like a little bit more advanced, but like honestly negligible, especially too when you're talking about like just young able-bodied people. These are not huge things, but you start doing these workouts and you start as a poolee and you understand like I'm a poolee now. I'll go to boot camp and I'll be a recruit. And then, so it's like, you got all like these amount of months that's just built up before you end up going. And so that was, kind of thing. I was like, I think about 8 months, 6 to 8 months, I think is like about like how long I was in the delayed entry program before, I left as, December. It was December 2010, something like that. Yeah.
Where I was like 5 years out of college in 2010, like trying to figure out like what the fuck I was going to do with my life.
Yeah. But, well, I went to college for a little bit and I was just didn't really do much. didn't take. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I did a theater program at my school, so I too came out into the world with zero skills, literally zero. In fact, less skills. I came out less prepared to deal with the real world after going to college than going into it. But one question I have, Marcus, is like, so you're going through all this training, you're doing all this training, months. Were you seeing like, were you like noticing like, holy shit, like I'm getting super fucking cut up and like this rules and like, and that kind of like perpetuates this thing that you're like, I'm becoming a weapon.
Yeah, no, I like not then. That eventually comes, but that
Yeah.
was a few years down.
Okay.
Really?
Most of your time, especially as your beginning stages, you're mostly just terrified. You know, like you're in a state of fear from like the people,
True.
the other Marines.
Yeah.
That's
Like your superiors are also your peers as well.
No, mostly just the superiors. Although going into the Marine Corps, I had this thought that like everybody around me was gonna just be, like I'd played sports growing, I played football and like soccer when I was younger, so like I was like athletic, but I had this mindset that like everybody that was gonna be in like everybody was just gonna be this bloodthirsty fucking like animal, right? Like. But it's not the case. It's a bunch of fucking nerds, just a bunch of dweebs.
Yeah. Especially when you get all your hair shaved off, it looks like it's like a bunch of extras or alternates from the movie Powder,
Yeah, it's like a wild pack of possums got into the Nair factory and then came out screaming. It's just these weird. It's just gross. It's mostly just weird looking, gross people that populates this thing.
Yeah.
And that's where too is like I'd say like MEPS is like kind of, or at least going through it, like I remember very much so. It's like that first night before you go to boot camp where you had to like stay in a hotel room, and it's like you could like call your parents on the phone or even like hang out, see them outside the hotel or whatever, or like whatever, friends, family. But then like after that it's just like people yelling at you.
Yeah.
There's just this
boot camp. My worst nightmare. Just like people that are bigger than me, who are like more in touch with their masculinity than I am, just like yelling at me and like expecting me to exert my body in ways that I'm that I haven't in the past. It's just like, it's so scary. Were your folks like pretty supportive of this? When you call them from the hotel or whatever, where they're like, we're so proud of you. And
oh yeah, especially and like that's and it's kind of weird that it's like, I guess I come from like a military family, like my dad, I've got a few uncles, a few cousins, and like my older brother as well, we, there's a lot of military service, although it's like, we're not necessarily like patriotic. It was always just like, oh, it's like kind of, it's like means to an end.
Yep.
Yeah.
For a lot of the people, and especially, the Jamaican immigrants. So like my dad literally did it to get his citizenship. And then was able like to actually get a job where he learned a useful skill, not
right, because on I guess like from that perspective, it takes out like kind of like what the most fucked thing about the economy is right now, which is that like you are completely on your own in terms of figuring out how you're going to take care of yourself or your family. Whereas like you're the Army, you're like, shit, I can check into this thing for 4 years and come out and essentially have like a dope resume. Like even if the resume is just like, I did this very hard thing that requires like a ton of focus and commitment and risk. At the very end of it, you're kind of like, well, who doesn't want to hire somebody that that put themselves through this? And so it's like kind of in some ways why people back in the day like go to college is because they're like, I can do this thing for 4 years and come out and like a job will be ready for me.
And I think even like skipping ahead to even like where Dick and I met, even without like we were both infantrymen, we didn't learn any skills there. But we essentially both leveraged the service into a professional life that had nothing to do with like any of the skills they already learned.
But most people can't do. We were very lucky to be able to do that. Like, most people can't do that, and it's like,
you could be lucky. I could be good.
Marcus was more skilled. I was more lucky.
Marcus was good.
Statistically speaking, that's
very lucky.
Absolutely. If you were to look at the two of us as to say which one's lucky and which one's got more has more skill to get to where they are, Marcus would be the more skilled one, and I would be the more lucky one for sure. But the idea that like that bill of goods is very much oversold when you join the military, Jake, of like, oh yeah, when you come out, everyone's gonna fucking want you to be on their team and stuff because of your set of skills and stuff. And like the reality is is you're a dumbass who's full of rage and is a liability, you know, and
well,
people know that.
Yeah. Well, the thing that's fucked up too is that the skills like don't transfer. Some of the skills don't transfer. You know, like my dad was able to say like, no, like the same equipment in an army hospital is the same equipment in a civilian hospital.
Yeah.
That's just a coincidence. The same trucks you drive in the military aren't the same trucks that you drive in the civilian world. The same processes and everything. You need to be a nurse in the military. They say, fuck off. Go through the fucking same line, almost like everybody else. You've got some places where they're starting to change it. I think, you know, Maine did make some changes and they're just needy of healthcare workers.
Yeah.
You know, so there's some type of like necessary force, but in some cases, this is just it's kind of a lie. You know that there's hey you know you get a skill and then you do this other thing. I mean, fuck yeah, because the apparatus, right, in the United States it still forces them through the same skill set gaining opportunities. You know, we're just 4, 6, 8, 10, whatever, how many long you usually stayed on. But what do people most do? They either go to college or they do go to some job training program.
Yeah. Yeah. Some sort of trade school or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, like, I know guys, cops, you got to go to cop school. Firefighters, you got to go to firefighter school. Yeah. HVAC mechanics, you got to go to fucking HVAC shit. Yep. You know, like, you got to go through whatever fucking hoops. Same as everybody else. I went to school. Dick went to school. You know, like, yeah. I think a lot of the vets that we talk, you know, like, you do something. I mean, hell, too. The GI Bill, it's not a bad way to just, you know, ease into things.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. I mean, at the end of the day, as far as even just like for me going in, like part of that idea was that like, oh, hey, I will be able to leverage this. This is how. This is how you grow up and become a man or some shit. I don't know.
Yeah. And you're like, and you're also like, and I'm not a fuck up. Like, I'm not in the bars all the time. Like, you know, this is something that I can say and be proud of. There is, I think, you know, we are all, you know, in this very, very weird sort of like, you know, and maybe it's always been like this, but, you know, I feel like one thing that the internet did is, it took away a lot of people's authenticity because like, you know, like if you were, let's say, like if you were like me, like I was a kid that was like very interested in like giant squids when I was growing up. I was like fascinated by these creatures. But if you wanted to like learn more about it, you had to go like read a book. You had to, you know, go do all this stuff. Now everything is like so instant. It's like, now we share the same videos, we share the same clips, we share the same tweets, and people just, you know, so many conversations you have nowadays. It's like, oh, did you see the video where the guy, you know, or like, oh, did you see that Amber Heard, or like, oh, did you see, like, we're all, the conversation is kind of like already set for us. And so, especially like in that time when I think we were really wrestling it, which was like the 2010s, I feel like there is this need in all of us to be like, no, like I want something that's like authentic, that like sets me apart from the, you know, sets me apart from the rest, and like you know, is something that I can be really proud of. And, you know, in, you know, Marcus, in your case, you know, I'm not just like another guy like slinging drinks or whatever behind a bar, like getting so fucked up every weekend and like, you know, wondering when I'm gonna die, essentially.
God, that was such a mistake. I just should have stayed doing that. Oh my God. So much fun.
Right, because eventually, right, like eventually, like, you know, the manager quits and they're like, hey, you've been here like forever. Like, you actually probably have a better chance of like leveling up in a career had you just stayed doing that and kind of like outgrew the, you know, getting too fucked up part. Or you just become a functional alcoholic like many people.
Like I became anyway. That was the wraparound. That is that I still drank quite a bit of alcohol.
To
that. but now you've got an even better excuse because you're like, I mean, I don't know what your tours were like, but it's like, I've fucking seen shit, man. Like,
it doesn't matter. You could come out of boot camp.
You better not question why I'm pounding these beers or whatever.
Yeah. No, and that's like. And that's what it too, is it's a large like shit show, especially like, I mean, it's just a bunch of young people now with paychecks guaranteed. Like it's just.
And what else do they need at that point? They're gonna maybe die anyways. So it's like this is guaranteed, and I don't even have to like do all. I just have to like go to this recruitment office, like fill out this thing, see where I get set, and then and then it's paycheck and benefits and all. Like that's something that I don't realistically believe that I can get like on my own. So
I mean, especially like for someone 18 years old, the things that like military, like it's just impossible. It's impossible. And I think what's like kind of fucked up too is as far as like the way that funnels people to just like get married, is like super fucked up.
That is, I had a friend who joined the military because he couldn't pay for the university that we were at, and so he got into like the ROTC program, and then he ended up actually like getting called up, and he married the girl that he was dating like right before he left, and it's been an absolute disaster for him. Just like it's been a 100% disaster, like in every single way.
Yeah, but that's, I don't know. It's just yeah. Like we go like, talking about the poverty draft and all that type of shit. It's just or it's just it's just something for me. I think a lot of it too is like I did grow up like playing sports and for a while and like somewhere just like I wanted to be like you feel like, oh hey, this is like a
P.S. Ted Cruz
team to be on.
Go fuck yourself.
Yeah, it's the team, and you get like dope guns and stuff, and
oh yeah, you had to blow shit up,
like maybe kill people, like also in the abstract, we are so inundated by all of these things that have no bearing on our lives whatsoever, but no bearing on our actual happiness, that like in some ways that I can see how that's attractive to just like revert to the most primal form of existence, like fight or flight, kill or be killed.
When I got out of the military, I did a lot of thinking about like I would see these guys like on Facebook and stuff that I served with that were absolute fucking dirtbags, like terrible soldiers, not good at it in any way, and did nothing but complain and say they hated it and couldn't wait to get out. And then you'd see them just posting shit like, man, I wish I was back in, kind of shit. And I did a lot of thinking about like, why the fuck is this? Why does this person exist? And why do I feel this way a little bit too? Like I'm not posting about it. I don't think I feel as strongly as they do because I thought about it for more than 10 seconds. But what I came to realize is like the military, there's two things all people need and crave, even if they don't know it. And that's a purpose and a community. And the military,
100%, yes.
The military gives you both of those things. They are baked in. Every morning you get up and the purpose is driven by the community. If you don't get up, you're going to get your ass kicked out of the bed and forced to go do the thing that you have to do. Mm-hmm. Whatever. And even if you think the purpose is stupid, the purpose is still there. And you have a community of people who are there supporting you or keeping you accountable, depending on the day, and towards pursuing that purpose. And like, people don't realize how big of a hole that leaves in them when they get out.
Right.
It's just like, I am just a fucking rudderless. I'm just like, what's Henry Hill say after Goodfellas? Like, I'm just some fucking schmuck now, Just just missing like he understands he's missing the extravagance of his previous lifestyle, but like when you get out of the military, it's just those two very basic things that you thought were making you miserable because you were having to do miserable shit, but at the same time you pull those things away and you're like, oh, now I'm truly empty. I was tired, it was miserable, but I feel like a fucking ghost now,
And also I think it's like the military has that ladder in front of you. Most people don't make it past like E4. Like fucking, I don't know what the numbers is. I'm just gonna throw out 90%. 90% of serving the military don't make it past E4. They churn, just churn out bodies. But that ladder right to the top, the hierarchy.
Yeah.
Plain as day. Whether you stay in or not. This is how you move up, right?
Yeah.
And even if you just stick around and keep your head down, you're gonna move up. That's not, and you assume, I guess, that like that's how the world works you know, but like that's not how this shit works at all. And also too, a lot of the things that help
no
you, right, of
way.
housing and healthcare, because that's the thing. It's like as much as military healthcare sucks, at least it's there.
Yeah,
If you're hurt, you actually get to see someone with some kind of medical training.
yeah,
May not be perfect, but it's something. It's real. It's tangible, right?
It's often
These
very
motherfuckers
bad.
talk about access. That doesn't do you a whole lot of fucking good.
yeah, yeah. Because even now, like on my current healthcare, it's like I got assigned a group. They suck. And when I call them to make an appointment, it's like, well, they don't have an appointments for like 4 months. I'm like, well, my problem is either going to go away on its own by then, or I'll be dead. So like,
Yep.
what's the point? It's like, what's the point? It's we really have been conditioned to just kind of like accept death. And like I wonder if that's another reason why it's so difficult for people who get out of the military, because they're like, well, I was just in a situation where like the death was real, as opposed to this very ethereal thing that I know it's like slowly crushing me like over a long period of time, like based on the a system that is essentially crumbling. And they're like, I wish it was right in my face again at the very least.
But what you're describing, Jake, like it's not most people in the military. Meaning, like most people in the military aren't living under life-threatening conditions most of the time. Like most people in the military are in support roles. Like Marcus and I were really dumb individuals who scored high on the ASVAB and decided to go do the most dangerous job. And like my story is very similar to Marcus's. Like very much having a death drive when I got out of high school, but more I would say something that like Marcus probably didn't experience was like mine was directly motivated, but unironically like a level of toxic masculinity. Like I had something to prove to like myself, to my family, to my friends, like I'm gonna be a badass, but also I gobbled up propaganda. Like I wasn't a patriot, like, but I wanted the experience of going through like the harrowing experience and heroism of combat, because like I had watched Black Hawk Down and Band of Brothers too many fucking times. Like I was like, oh, look at this incredibly like visceral bonding experience these people went through, like, and I don't really like see myself living past 25 like Marcus said, so this would be a cool way to go out, like
Yeah.
Because like the thing is too is like like in some movies say it's like, no, you're not the main character,
yes.
like even if you die, it's not going to be valiant and be on the main screen and people know that this is like, because the thing is too is that like fuck, Memorial Day was Monday.
Yeah, Monday.
Like and it, like what, so the fuck what,
Yeah.
what does this do? And the thing too is like anyone that I know that I serve with is dead now, like doesn't give a fuck. They didn't give two shits about the flag or any of this fucking bullshit.
Yep.
Like they just wanted to go home and fucking get wasted.
Yeah, and
it is. It's a good excuse to get wasted, right? like you feel better, like, yeah, like, man, if I like run 3 errands in a day, I'm like, oh boy, getting fucked up tonight. I'm gonna twist a fat one when I get home, because I went out to like Walgreens and Trader Joe's and like the weed store, and like that I feel accomplished. So I can't even imagine like I can't even imagine that somebody who's like in combat, the sort of permission that they give themselves and that they believe should be given to them by society to just like, yeah, wait, drink up the rest.
Well, and that's something too that's like it's even beforehand, like it is immediate, like when you're in infantry school. I mean, hell, I actually got busted in infantry school for getting younger kids booze. You know, like it's a rocky start.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Just like back home.
I'm fucking, hey, I got your back, homie. Not anymore. I'm old man now. I'll tell you to fucking read a book or some shit. But
I'm just picturing you, some kids being like, "Can you buy us some whiskey?" And you're like, "Have you read Mao?"
yeah, I want some fucking whiskey. No, but it's so like it starts. It's actually it's part of the culture, right? And the thing is too is like really like these military bases. They are these microcosms of like a dollar store version of Las Vegas. It's
Awful.
yeah, it's just
Awful.
like everything. It's just a very they are awful places. They are fucking bad fucking places. And so yeah, you know, that type of alcoholism, it's like it's day one, you know, and really it's like across the board. And like honestly, right, too, it's like most of my days as a United States Marine Corps infantryman was not in combat, was safe, was, you know, or like relatively safe, you know, training with some of these motherfuckers is not safe.
Yeah.
But you know, that's not like every single fucking day in, day out. And you know, a lot of these ills still exist, you know, because it's more the
I know
culture,
you're hoping
you know,
and praying that maybe
that
we'll
whole
have
hey,
another
I'm
war,
serving,
but it
right?
ain't happening.
It's just an excuse. It's just an excuse to be an asshole.
Mm-hmm.
That's another one I think about a lot, and I've talked about a lot because like when Marcus and I both worked with veterans for a while after we got out, and you'd hear a lot of the same stories and stuff, and people getting mad about the same shit. And like within the veteran community, there'd be a lot of stolen valor shit, but mostly about like a bunch of people who were in support roles and stuff who would then pretend like they weren't in support roles, like they were in combat and they did see some shit, and that's why they're fucked up. And I mean, even me, like I got diagnosed with PTSD after coming back from Afghanistan, and I went to the VA and I saw a social worker for like 2 years and did some like intense therapy to fucking deal with it. And I used to tell people like 50% of the time I'm in there, I'm just pissing and moaning about things in my everyday life and coming to terms with the ways that I was fucked up before I ever got shot at, you know? Like,
yeah,
there's a ton of people who you join the military with the baggage that you already have, and that doesn't go away. You just add to it, you know?
Yeah.
And then people try to pretend afterwards like, oh, I used to be normal. Like, no, man, you were anxiety-riddled alcoholic before you ever got blowed up, you know? I try to explain that to people sometimes. And then also, when people were in the military and people know they're in the military, even if they didn't know what they did, then they come back, they're missing that community, that sense of purpose, and they still have their baggage. And then they create a narrative that is acceptable, socially acceptable by other people. And they say, oh yeah, man, I was in the shit. And because they know people see them being fucked up and they want a reason for it, you know? And I try to tell people like don't judge them too harshly for that, you know, like, and I was trying to tell them like, I am a guy who did some of the real shit that you put on a pedestal that was just awful and stupid and mindless and horrific. Like, I'm going to give you permission to forgive that person, you know, like they are dealing with some things like, and also like the guys who went through combat, we don't have a monopoly on trauma or any of that shit. Mm-hmm. And we're often trotted out as the highest example of that, which is so fucking dumb. It's so dumb. It's like the only person who's allowed to complain about being traumatized is the Navy SEAL who killed bin Laden, you know, like fuck off, you know, like there's so many ways this world will fuck you up. I always like to think of the the Atticus Finch line about like courage isn't like a man with a gun. It's like knowing you're licked from the start and going to do it anyways, you know, kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and it's like, you know, well, I forgot what I was going to say. I had something interesting to contribute, but then
shit, I ranted for too long. I'm sorry.
No. I thought of it right. No, this is how bad my ADD is. I thought of it right at the end of as you were making your point, and then I forgot within like the like 5 milliseconds. Oh, I got it. It came back. So I imagine there's also like your brain gets fucked up like going to the military and then but not being in combat and coming back and being like, well, like, yeah, I was in, but like I didn't do any like crazy heroic stuff, or like I didn't have like, I wasn't in like a firefight or whatever, and like that weighs on them, I'm sure, in its own weird way, because there's a higher, because it is, I mean, that's kind of, I think a lot of civilians are under the impression that, like, you go to the military, like you're going to see some crazy, you're going to see combat, and I was very surprised to learn. I had a friend who enlisted, and I was very surprised. He basically just like worked on helicopters and like never saw combat ever. And I was like, oh, those kind of jobs like exist. Like I thought basically everybody essentially is like infantry until I'm raised on like the movies and stuff. I thought it was all like Starship Troopers, like everybody serves as infantry, and then if you survive, you survive infantry, then you get bumped up to like one of the cushier jobs, just like any other fucking job where you have to do the dumb shit in the mail room, and then you get to sit behind the desk and get way more money to do way less work.
Yeah, no, that's where, like, I mean, the Pentagon can't even attempt an audit, let alone fail one. You're talking about the largest, this is the world's largest jobs program, hey, like the United States military. It's massive, it's huge, and yes, it comes like with the weapons manufacturers, but I mean, yeah, you've got IT fucking Marines. I don't, there's like, I mean, like just admin, like you walk onto a military base, and that's like it less over time with contractors, but essentially everyone that you touch, hell, there's people at, like, I mean, like we call it the PX, but the grocery stores and the corner stores and shit on base, right. Those are Marines. In some cases, just but in some cases, it's like, no, you manage the grocery store and shit. Like there's all types of shit you could do, and I mean, like truck drive, and so this is where like the structures here, I think it's like not necessarily bad. Like what are they used for, right? Mm-hmm. That's what's fucked up. But it's like, yeah, training people how to do medical procedures. That's actually a good thing. We should do more of that. Yeah. You don't have to wear camis anymore, right? You don't have to wear the camouflage uniform anymore. Yeah. We're just like, and you don't only have to work in this military hospital, right? Like, why isn't that just replicated over? Like, there are those jobs where, and like, yeah, fixing helicopter equipment. Hell, on one of my deployments, it's you just jump on a Navy ship and they sail you around and all that shit. The air crew maintenance people worked way more than I did.
Yep.
Way more. Mm-hmm. Those motherfuckers don't sleep.
That's fucking wild. Just the idea of just like getting whisked around and like I don't know, like being on like an aircraft carrier or whatever. Like shit is wild. I mean, I'm sure it's awful. I can only imagine like how fucking terrible that is. Cramped, always kind of moving around. It's like any job, and they wouldn't pay you to do it if there wasn't something that like completely sucked about it. But I mean, for you guys, like, was it fucked up? Like, being in these like heavy, or experiencing like combat situations, like it sounds like you both did, and then going back and like looking at the guy who's like stocking the Snicker bars at like the PX counter, and like how do you I don't know, how do you like square that off for yourself, where it's like we're in the same organization, but like that guy's always going to be safe, and probably learning some actionable skills that I wish I had.
Yeah, horrible toxicity.
Oh, and yes. Oh god.
Yeah, that's just, I guess, horrible toxicity. And I mean, like we talked about before, like it's called POGs, personnel other than grunt, is or at least like you got the infantry or the grunts, and then you got the POGs, it's everybody else. Even like I remember something that one of my infantry school instructors said, infantry's the dick and balls and they're the support, right? They're the jock strap. And he's like literally talking about like 90% of the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
Like, you couldn't
that,
say, you couldn't say
that makes
the
you
word
feel
pogue.
special, right? Because you're like, I'm the fucking 10%. I'm in the
Yeah,
I'm in the
no, it's just the dumbest.
10%. Like,
Yes.
All
Yeah.
you fuckers work for me. I couldn't, and you calling someone a fucking pogue was like the worst thing. It was like a slur, you know?
yeah.
You fucking pogue, and you couldn't, you said it was, you spit on the ground afterwards. Like, you're just, like, because you, they built an image of you. Yes, like, no, you're the motherfucker who goes out and does the fucking killing and suffers. And never forget, well, the fucking rain is coming down on your head and the bullets are coming sideways at you. These fuckers are drinking fucking hot tea and sleeping in beds, you know? Like, hate them, you know? It was like horribly, horribly toxic. I mean,
and it's just, and it's
awful.
It's yeah. And the thing is too, and it's like the biggest fucking bullshit because it's all a lie. Well, at least, and this is the thing too, is like when it comes to the Marine Corps, and even especially within the infantry, since the like one of the jobs that sucks the most, there's the least amount of bonuses. You know what I'm saying? You go out, there's nothing you can do. Like it's the worst thing, right? You're just cannon fodder. That's it. You're the bullet sponge. You're the ones that are just, hey, go ahead, storm the beach so we can send the next wave.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
God.
That's us. But there's this like whoever had the harshest time. That's where like you end up like trading stories and developing I guess a hierarchy amongst your peers with who's gotten through the worst thing. Yeah.
Yep.
You know, and so it's like if you're going through and it's it's raining a fuck ton, it's like, oh well, I remember this one time in this place, it rained so bad, you know, I lost a layer of skin on my feet and I couldn't walk for 3 weeks. And it's like, oh well, I remember one time,
God.
fucking somebody fucking drowned because it's like, well, it's like you just keep going on and one up and everything's the worst. Where was
just
the coldest?
Like culture of one-upmanship, which is the worst shit. Even now, you see it like somebody will post a comment on like Twitter or Reddit or whatever, and they'll be like, "Yeah, my cat, threw up this morning," and somebody will be like, "Oh, well, my cat 2 weeks ago, my cat threw up for 3 days." It's just like we live in this culture, like, and it's basically as long as I can remember of like. It's like yes and but instead of like doing a funny improv, doing fun of improv, which is collaborative, it's almost combative. It's like, well, yes, I validate that what you went through you thought was difficult, but let me add like my let me add my story too.
It's only a validation to put it lower on the scale.
Yep.
Like,
right.
Yes, we are reading the temperature gauge, but what you're saying is hot isn't actually hot. Let me tell you about hot, which
that sucks.
Fucking 130, 140 fucking degrees, full kit out there in the fucking no, like that's like basically, like you start fucking listing off like every little detail that could have made something shittier. You make up, I don't know, some fucking bullshit, and then you get
exactly. It gets to the point where like, no shit, there it was, the Dagobah system. Like it becomes, and people are looking at you, looking at the guy like, oh really, Dagobah? And he's like, nope, call me a liar, I was there, man, I was in the swamp. Yoda stole my fucking snacks, little bastard, and like dare you to call him out. It's just like, okay, man, cool. Like when I got out, I made a rule that was like, I everyone likes to tell stories, right? I love to tell stories. I do it all the time. But like I was like, I will allow myself to lie while I'm telling stories, but never embellish. If I'm going to tell the story, it is only going to be to make myself sound more stupid for comedic effect or something. Never more badass or anything. Like I will just make myself sound more like in the moment I was probably bumbling a little bit. But I'm going to make myself sound like fucking Gomer Pyle or Mr. Magoo, because it's funnier that way,
Or generally more human.
Exactly. Like it's more relatable and stuff.
And I'll say, I think the best in this, like, I guess like one of the best like cultures I was in within a unit, it was the one where like basically our interactions was more based around gambling and like working out. You know, like if we were hanging out, like we were like playing cards, we were betting, you know,
Yeah.
we like
Playing spades,
or we
playing
were or
spades, hell
working
yeah.
out. Yeah, playing spades. You know, it was like, but by that time we got a point to like we've heard all our bullshit stories already. You know, like it was just, hey, let's fucking just hang out. You know, but
It's
like
just the
that's
community aspect, right? Like it's like all of the one-upping and the toxic sort of like masculinity had all been sort of, played out to its completion, and what was left was essentially just like what everybody wants, which is like people to hang with, have a good
yeah,
time, little bit of money, a little bit of money on the table. It's like it's not. I mean, this is a weird segue, but it's like one of the reasons like I love video games is because like it's an adventure with very low stakes.
yeah. Yeah, and that's I mean that's what I was about to say. It's it's a way to have stakes on the table that's not
Yeah.
the stakes that's like constantly put in front of your face.
Yeah.
Like it's okay to lose a few bucks, no big deal. But that thrill of the game or whatever the fuck.
Yeah, which we need as human beings because like I read a long time ago I read somewhere that essentially like our brains haven't evolved like that much beyond kind of our first like kind of like primitive versions of ourselves, which is just like to eat, to go to the bathroom, have sex, fight, run away from something. Like we're not all that much more like evolved in terms of how our brain processes things, and yet all of those things have kind of been taken away from us. It's like, oh, you go to the grocery store, it's like, oh well, it's just a matter of whose advertising got me the best, like to so I can get like which which product, which I also think is probably very difficult to, once you serve, to come back and go back into that grocery store and being like, oh my God, like the things that I have to think about now, like are so like pale in comparison to the kind of decisions that I had to make or the kind of thoughts that I had to entertain while I was enlisted. And I imagine that is like really, really hard to kind of slow down and have the the immediate kind of threat and the immediate instinct of survival just kind of like not be a thing anymore.
Yeah, when I got back, I went to the doc and I was like, I think I have a traumatic brain injury because I got blown up a few times, and
What'd you get blown up by?
Homemade explosives, courtesy of the Taliban in Kandahar. So just fucking, fertilizer fucking mixed with some shit and hundreds of pounds of it, that will decimate any fucking vehicle that we have. It's just like a very primitive technology that's been around for, fucking 50 years. And we're like, oh, don't worry, we have the best vehicles. And the Taliban's like,
they're like, nope, this bag of shit still works.
I have 1,000 pounds of this shit. What are you going to do? Like, yeah, exactly. And so I mean, I do think I have a bit of traumatic brain injury. In fact, when I got back, the way that I'm fairly certain that I do is that like my reaction time was I was terrible at Call of Duty. I couldn't play online anymore. I would get owned all the time, and I used to be very good at it. Like right when
well,
I
you got to
back,
switch now to like Arma or something where your like combat IQ will actually serve you.
But when I got back, I did think that like I would have trouble remembering things, like things that like basic things that I had conversations and stuff people would tell me about, and I would have no memory of it, right? So I went to the doc and I was like, I have a TBI, scan my brain, give me an MRI. And he was like, all right, let's talk some things. And he gave me remember the Trump test, the person, camera, TV thing?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Like he said, remember these 5 words. And then he immediately asked me the 5 words and I repeated them back. And then like we had a whole conversation about like why I think this and that. And then at the end he was like, by the way, what were those 5 words again? Which was the real test,
Yeah.
And I remembered them all. And he's like, okay, well, you probably don't have TBI then because you remember those words. And he's like, I don't think we need an MRI. And I was like, well, what the fuck is happening? And he said, well, like, and I think there's some truth to this. I think it's a little bit quacky because, like, I still remember really trivial bullshit about, like, pop culture and stuff. But, like,
Yeah.
he was basically like, listen, you went through an experience where your survival mechanism was kicked in for a good year on a regular basis. And so you probably rewired some neurons in your brain to prioritize information in an entirely different way than it was used to. And now some shit's going to get lost in the machine regularly that wasn't before, you know?
That sounds like some bullshit, but it could be true. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah,
a
I mean,
doctor.
like when you walk into like when you're like walk into like a 7-Eleven or whatever, is your like peripheral vision going like two shady guys standing over by the icy machine, to 3 cars parked outside. Like,
See,
I mean,
for me, and that's where it's like the door thing at a restaurant. Like, I always would look. Like, that's something like I always like where, and like even like people who were like, it's like, why do you do that? And I'm like, I'm curious who just came in.
yeah.
So that was never a thing with me. Like, even after, like, I would be jumpy in like basically when the way like my PTSD manifests itself was mostly like grief and depression. like I'd turn into fucking Tony Soprano, like fucking in a bathrobe.
Oh my God.
I can't get out of bed, you know? Because like I had
You're like, fuck this. You're like, I didn't get any of the fucking like cool Jason Bourne shit. I'm just like sad and like feel like purposeless.
Yeah, I'm sad. Like I lived, other people died. Why the fuck did I live? Like why did any of this happen at all? Why did I think this was a good idea? Why did I involve myself with it? You know?
Yeah.
Like did I contribute to these people dying in some way? Like, and you're just like should I even be alive now? Like, you're just pathetic. You're a pathetic, shambling, alcoholic, like zombie, you know? Like, it's nothing endearing about it. It's awful.
Yeah, it's the same insecurities as somebody who hasn't served, but your circumstances are completely different. Because like now, for me, it's like, oh, did I say something like offensive in this conversation, or like did I sound like I was bragging, or did I sound weak? Did I sound uncool? Like, did I sound like, we're constantly always just kind of turning inwards, except for you guys, it's like it's like about these like very high, high stakes situations where like, lives were actually lost. I can't even imagine being like, oh, if I hadn't like gone here, or if I had done this at a different amount of time, like, yeah, like, is it my fault that like these guys didn't make it back or
Jake,
whatever?
I had the exact same anxieties that you just described, the normal ones, because I was then hyper aware that I was a fucking freak who went through this shit that no one else could relate to either. And then I'm like, I probably said some really, that person gave me a look or something after.
Yeah.
And they probably think I'm a fucking weirdo, like violent psychopath, like, because like I probably am, because of this, like, like what kind of, like, I'm a deeply broken man who can't have a normal conversation without saying something really fucked up afterwards.
Yeah.
Because that's how I cope with things, And I'm like, and I'm mad at them, but I shouldn't be mad at them because they're just a normal person. Why can't I be normal? Like, I'm having the same anxiety that you're having, like, for a very like, but. Like I said before,
it's sensitive guys. It's sensitive guys in a non-sensitive world, and a world that looks down on sensitive guys. And to top it all off, like, you guys were involved in like the most macho, like sort of like program that you can be. So it's a hurricane of bad shit, because like you're already the kind of brain that is going to be like, what did I say, and like, oh, did I sound or oh God, and then you add this like level to it. It's like, I mean, but that's what's so awesome about this show, and that's so awesome about what you guys do, is you are giving other people permission to be in touch with the the sensitivity, and how it interacts with the experiences that you guys have, and that is fucking awesome. Like, the more and more people that are like this, that means the more and more people, especially in your case, like people who have served or soldiers, are going to go away being like, oh man, like it was really cool when I saw Dick be sensitive about this shit on the show last night, and talked about some like deep shit that like might be kind of embarrassing or whatever, or whatever they think, and then they go off and they feel the permission that they can do that, and like little by little, like over time, I think that contributes in a way to the shifting of how we program ourselves and our brains to kind of like handle the things that have happened to us in our lives.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead,
Marcus. I hope so. That sounds very, very good. That'd be very good if we could do that.
That is good. It is good, and you are doing it. You are doing it. It is. It's happening, and it's good, and you're doing it, and it's a worthy investment of your time.
Yeah, and that's where it's like it's something. Getting found out that you got scammed, it sucks.
It's hard to admit for anyone.
Yeah, and and like, I mean, Jake, you'd said it yourself with your own path, right? With QAnon, it's like being able to go back and say, hey, I was wrong about this. I know you're
hoping and praying that maybe we'll have another war,
that's,
but
that's like, I think it's like kind of like initial like hard thing to do, and especially when you're coming to the military to like fill some question or void, or to gain some purpose or something like that. Yeah. And then looking back and kind of realize it's kind of all dust. And that the thing is, like, not that it's all bad. Some good. There's some. I mean, I had some great experiences while I was in the Marine Corps. It's just like I wish those circumstances didn't have to like be that. Be under that, like, it'd been exactly. A whole lot nicer to be able to visit fucking Rome and go back to like a hotel room every night, or maybe stay with some fucking friends that I know there, not have to like show my ID, check into a Navy ship, and fucking sit and sleep in a coffin rack with like a dude above me, a dude below me, 3 dudes stacked up, on the other side, like. Hopefully people should be able to travel. You shouldn't have to scam young people into this thing.
Yeah.
Realizing that, hey, I kind of got scammed. It's like, and that's where it's like Dick and I, and like figure out like, what do I do with this thing? What do I do with this?
What do I do with this knowledge?
Yeah.
This admission that that we got scammed. Yeah. And it's even fucking worse for you because it's like there are bodies involved. It's not just like, oh, I signed up for a fucking MLM or whatever, and like I lost like this money. It's like you guys lost friends and there's people and I can't even imagine what else. So it's like,
I think it was like and like just, and I don't, as I had the show that I was on earlier, there's a guy, Mike McGinnis, who served with this guy, Clint Lawrence, who was a convicted war criminal.
Go fuck yourself.
And like Trump ended up pardoning this guy, right? Mm-hmm. And like that guy, like fuck that guy. I hope like all the fucking bad things in the world happen to like him and guys like him.
Yep. Sure.
Most service members, right, are just like, right, not that. And I just kind of think it's very important to just like have that like delineation of like, no, there's like a lot of fucking bad people who do join the service, who get worse because of the service.
Yeah.
And they're doing bad shit. Like Pete Hegseth, Fox News, fuck that guy.
Yeah.
Fucking Tom Cotton, fuck that guy.
Yeah.
Fuck you for using the part of imperialism for those extra evil exploits. I'm not, if you're just getting your 10% at fucking Arby's, that's fine, whatever.
Yeah. But I mean, Tom Cotton especially, like, I'm so afraid of that guy. Like, I think that's the kind of guy like to be so worried about, because like he is like a very focused, like, seemingly competent fascist, and it's like, yeah, guys like him are waiting. They are waiting. They are watching. They watched Trump pull the, Trump and QAnon and all of the circumstances, because it's bigger than just Trump. But these guys are waiting in the wings, watching their constituents get pulled so far right, and they're just like, oh, perfect, like I can't wait. And then they're gonna get in there with a real agenda that's other than just like, I want the people to like me and think that I'm the best. They're gonna get it. They're gonna get in with like a real agenda, and like, oh, it's gonna be so that shit scares me. Did
you know that Tom Cotton eats birthday cake for dinner every night?
No. It's breakfast, isn't it?
Is it breakfast? He eats birthday cake for breakfast.
Like the confetti, white sponge cake with the sprinkles.
He and his wife both.
That is pure evil.
Every day.
That is pure evil. That's like, there's something so sinister about that. I don't know what it is. I don't know why that rubs me in such a bad way. Like,
that's the only thing you need to know.
It's a fucking treat, okay? It should be. It's a once in a while treat. If you're walking through Rite Aid or whatever, and you see the Betty Crocker box and you see the vat of frosting next to it, and you hold it up to your wife and you go, huh? And she goes, no, and you go, that's right, I should put this back. That's like how birthday cake is supposed to operate.
So
to eat it every morning for breakfast and to have enough of a supply so that you can have it. This man must have like boxes upon boxes of the Betty Crocker birthday cake mix, and like poor. Oh my God! I hope he at least makes it himself.
No. He talks about it in the interview. So two things. Gomi said in the chat, like, that sounds great for cake for breakfast. Okay, yeah, one day, sure. But every day he goes to the grocery store and buys a cake that you're supposed to put some fucking 7-year-old's name on with frosting, and he goes, I will have that one, please, today. I'll have the usual.
That is some the usual killer shit.
Thank you, Sharon. Me and my wife will enjoy this at home. And
that's
then
like,
he goes back in 2 days for another cake.
Oh, so he like keeps it in the fridge. Oh, this is like something that you would read at like the Dahmer trials, right?
Exactly.
Is like the Osco bakery attendant is like, well, he was very nice. He used to come in every 2 days and get this birthday cake. Sometimes he would get sometimes he would get the one that's shaped like a star. Other times he would get the one that's shaped like a balloon. Yeah. And they're like, would you like to write anything on it, sir? He's like, no, just blank, please.
Sharon, I'm feeling adventurous. Give me the lion-shaped one today.
Yes. Today he's like, I want you to put plastic effigies of small children holding a handful of balloons on this one.
P.S. Ted Cruz, go fuck yourself.
You know what's even weirder too is like, I think like in the story that he's being interviewed in, I think he thought he's like, let me do something that's going to make me more relatable, like
that's his like quirky
River
thing.
And Ravens
like,
donated $5.
That's so true. That's so true.
Really great commentary and guest tonight. Thanks for joining, Jake.
Sorry, there's a dono being
I was hoping to get all three of y'all's take on some Q adjacent news out of Utah. Tweet in chat. Also, I hear Tom Cotton has an attic of dead girls dressed up as dolls. Allegedly.
Okay, so Rav says, thank you for the $5 dono, Rav. Rav says, really great commentary and guest tonight. Thanks for joining, Jake. I was hoping to get 3 of y'all's take on Q adjacent news out of Utah. Look at the tweet, which we can in a second. Also, I hear Tom Cotton has an attic of dead girls dressed up as dolls, allegedly. What is this QAnon news? I will.
All right, I'm looking. A Utah County attorney is asking the Utah County Sheriff to resign after the sheriff's office said they were investigating a group for ritualistic sexual abuse and trafficking, and apparently implicated the county attorney, saying he murdered and ate the children.
This is exactly what you talked about earlier, Jake. It's baked in. These guys are just, they're pilled. He might not even have heard of QAnon, but he's saying the same shit.
Yeah, that they, and the fucked up thing is like when you listen to our show, like the fucked up thing that you realize is like we've been doing this shit. Like Travis just did an episode, a 3-part episode on his new podcast that was all about like the white slavery panic in like the 1920s, and it's the same shit. It's literally it's the like federal law enforcement system creating a new task force to essentially like that they claim is going to protect white women, and then at the end of it all they just use it to arrest like marginalized people and people of color.
Yep.
And that's actually like what it ends up being used for. Anybody who was like in an interracial relationship that was like traveling from like Illinois to Idaho, like those are the people who got scared. No actual sex traffickers, no nothing. In fact, like most of the women who they ended up interviewing in the sex worker houses were like, no, I want to be here. Like, this is good money. Like, leave me alone. I'm perfectly happy here. I'm not being trafficked or anything. Mm-hmm. And they're like, no, you sure you're not being trafficked? Like, we will go arrest like people who've committed no crime in the name of your safety. It's like so fucked up.
Yeah, those are really, really good. I'm loving Travis's new feed there. Trickle down. It's so good. Like the exploration of those kind of things where like it's incredible how nothing is new in the world. Like that shit is like to the point where in these stories there's like the guy who's trying to uncover it and blow it up just does the thing that he like literally traffics a child to France.
Yeah. And that's always the case. They're always doing or end up doing inadvertently the thing that they're trying to sort of stop or prevent.
And then he's like, oh, let me cover my tracks by having like a medical professional or a nun or something investigate the child's privates to verify she's a virgin, to show that like I didn't actually sexually abuse her. I was just pretending for like the sake of investigating these crimes, and just, with the help of the Salvation Army, to send her to fucking France and to smuggle her out of England to see if I could do it. Oh, it was incredible shit. And then the
wait. This
all happened.
You're not riffing.
This all happened. You got to listen.
No, this all happened. Somebody in the chat mentioned it, but like they ended up going after Charlie Chaplin with the Mann Act. That was like the sort of like final boss stage of like this incredibly just worthless and fucking aggressively horrible bill or this act, whatever, the Mann Act or whatever it was called. But like,
famously Jack Johnson too.
Jack Johnson too, yeah.
Black man who was beating the shit out of some fucking white dudes in the ring, and they couldn't handle that. And also, he was having sex with some white girls. Like, not only am I being emasculated in the ring, I'm being emasculated in the bedroom by this bull of a man. Better throw his ass in prison with a law that we just fucking pull out of our ass.
Yeah. And it's like still being used today. Like there was, I can't remember, but in the episode, Travis like talks about like some cases like recently where it was used. But yeah, it's so everything is so fucked. And I have a theory. Like I'm just rereading this tweet from this Utah about he believes that the attorney was like eating the children and stuff. And this goes back to kind of my earlier point about nobody feeling like they have like any authenticity, and they kind of we are essentially just kind of like mimics of like the popular culture, that we are sort of force fed. Like, we live in a time where like on any given day, like you can be talking to somebody and they'll say something like, yeah, it was the best meal ever. Mm-hmm. Or like, oh yeah, like best night ever. Like really, and they're talking about like, they went to McDonald's at like 2 a.m. Like I've said that. Like I order McDonald's like super late. I'm like, oh, it was best meal ever. Incredible. But we speak in this like hyperbole or hyperbole. What is it? How do you pronounce it? I don't know. Hyperbole.
You got it.
Hyperbole.
Yeah, you got it.
I knew it was something like that. And like we're so, and like we're so like, remember when Mad Men came out and everybody started wearing like the fedoras and shit because they just like you know what I mean? And like you saw these guys who were just like dressing in like they were like 1950s like ad men, and like even though that's definitely like not something that you would want to aspire to, but like the TV told us it was cool. And I think that is like so ingrained in our culture. We're so used to casually referencing something as the most extreme version of what it is, that people like this dude have no problem being like, yeah, and he was probably eating the children, and like Trump is such a perfect example of this, because like, even in my impersonation, when Trump talks about something, he'll be like, it was the best concert that I ever saw, possibly in the last 10 years, possibly in the last millennium. Like he would always make that jump from like best day ever to like in all of the universe. Yeah. And I think that we're conditioned as a culture to kind of think in those ways. And so, when people are talking about like the attorney that they don't like because like, I don't know, their politics are bad, or they don't agree with their politics or whatever, they're like, he's a murderer. He's a murderer. It's like, you have, and this is obviously, there's some truth to this, but, people talk about, who Trump being president, during COVID, and they're like, he murdered 150,000 people. Yeah. And it's like, I get what you mean. Like you're meaning this in kind of like an analogy, but the way it's said and the language that we use is like, no, he personally showed up at their house and like strangled them. And that gives people, I think that gives people in all kind of circles to go and continue that sort of that kind of expression.
I'm just picturing like this scene where like Trump's hands,
like Nosferatu,
like
he's like,
coming, but it's like with the angle and the shadow or whatever, it's just like it shows how tiny they are.
I'm here to kill you.
Oh shit, yeah, dudes did the same when Peaky Blinders came out. Yeah, it's like whatever, like what's the hot new show, like what's the hot show right now that people are just like living in?
Sons of Anarchy.
Oh
when
yes,
that shit came out, man. Anything that can allow fucking white boy summer,
yes,
like that's that, like they because it'll be just hot for a season, and it's all based off of like these, whatever damn TV show, whatever aesthetic they can fucking jump in.
But that's also the thing that I think that like is funny about that, and it's almost cliche for me to even point this out about this thing. It's a little cringe even, but like the point of like The Sopranos or Mad Men, like was like, it was a character study about these guys who like on a very surface level, you might find appealing for very surface reasons, but like the character study that they went into was like they're deeply broken people who hurt everyone around them at all times.
Yes.
They're not good people. They just look, you see an image, and you're like, that kind of looks cool though. Like they seem empowered, You
nailed it. It looks cool.
Yeah.
It looks cool. Don Draper smoking the cigs and like being terrible to women. Like it looks cool. You know why? Because it's shot with a really expensive camera, and you've got a whole department that is making sure that it looks
John
cool.
Hamm is 15 titimes handsomer than you'll ever be.
Yes,
okay.
Yes, of course. The ad men in like 1950 were probably like slobs, just slobs, and they're like, no, we'll get like this handsome movie star. Where it's like, I mean, this is a funny segue. It's like, Marcus, you were saying, you got into boot camp or whatever, and it's like all these nerds, but like in the movies, it's fucking Josh Hartnett. It's like a young Leo DeCamp. It's like a young Damon, a Tom Hanks. Who doesn't want to go get killed for like a young, handsome, sensitive Hanks? Shooting the revolver at the tank and the tank explodes. It's like, who doesn't? Like our culture is so fucked up. Like I was talking to, I think it was Dick, it just chatting in DMs before we came on. I was telling how, my father was too young for Vietnam, like just too young. And so he watched, so many, basically all of his kind of, his peers that were slightly older than him, get drafted or go enlist. But like, he became like fascinated by military culture. He was building building model planes. And when we were little, that's what we would build model planes, and we would get the little, they used to have the little boxes. I don't know if you guys remember these, the little boxes of the soldiers that you would use the little glue to like put there, and it would be like a squad, and you would paint them, and they would have the little stuff, and they were in like really cool poses. Like, I was putting those together when I was like 10 or 11, and and he would also fly like simulators and play Arma and stuff, and he got me into that. And it was like, but dude, you didn't go, like, you didn't have to go, like, you were one of the lucky ones, that didn't have to serve in, like, arguably would like one of the worst conflicts that the United States has ever entered into. But here you are, like, wanting to, in your playtime, in your what's supposed to be your relaxation time, simulate this thing. It's crazy. It's like a crazy thing that, like, that this culture,
but
that
it looks
we
cool though, Jake. It looks
but
cool.
it looked
you got
cool.
This
It
fucking
looked
cool
cool.
plane in this pose. Like, you imagine this dogfight where you're the fucking Red Baron, or like you're in that squad and you're Tom Hanks leading the way instead of the guy screaming with his legs blown off in the background. Like, you imagine yourself as the protagonist always. We all got main character syndrome at all times. And like Marcus said, like, the thing that we try to relay in our messaging all the time is like, you are the guy dying in the background that doesn't even get a line. That is, you're not the protagonist, man. You're going to die for no fucking reason. That's what's going to happen to you. You're not going to learn any lessons. You're not going to make any real friends along the way and learn about how the enemy might have a heart too. No, you're just going to fucking die in horrible agony. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah, and like your bunkmate is gonna like steal some smokes out of your rack or whatever, and you're gonna be like, you're gonna have like a quiet like animosity and tension towards each other. Like, it's just gonna be it's not gonna be anything like the movies sort of gloss over that part.
Yeah, and you'll get in a fist fight with them, and like people will break it up, and you'll call each other horrible names, and you might be friends again in a week, but you'll be mad, and like one of you will have a black eye, and then you'll have to fight again to prove that you didn't lose that fight,
Oh God. My friend, the guy who served in the Berlin Brigade, he told me this story once about he got into a fist fight with this guy because the guy called him a racial slur, and both of them were like whisked to, I don't know, basically it's like a punishment sort of duty or whatever. I don't know what the technical name for it was, where like basically he and the guy like got the shit beaten out of each other. That by the time they dropped them off, like he said, the rest of his platoon looked at them like they were ghosts because they just had like mud in their face, from getting the shit beaten out of them by these like, sort of disciplinary officers or whatever. And he said that what was never addressed was why they got into a fight. Yep. He's like, he's like, yeah, that guy and I, we never talked to each other again. We didn't fuck with each other. It was no problem. But it wasn't because the guy learned, the other guy learned what he did was wrong and that he shouldn't do that. It was because they got their asses kicked so hard that they just like didn't want to get their asses kicked that hard again. And the root of the problem was never actually addressed.
Well,
and that was like a wild story to me. I was like,
they did
because
dumps.
It's not.
They call them dumps.
It's not
big, massive
saying
dumps.
anything. It's just it's being out of line. And I do want to thank B. Dolan for the raid. Appreciate it.
Thanks, B. Dolan.
Got Jake from QAA on with us today. So we're doing like a reverse, like we're doing like a home and home interview, and I think now we're on just like random shit.
Yeah, we're ranting and raving.
Yeah,
we're just hanging out with the boys,
hooting and hollering. And shit. Now I just lost what I was gonna say.
Oh shit!
Because
I was talking about you were talking about. It's covering up. It's avoiding the issue. It is.
Oh yeah. So like, there's no, like, and this is where, it doesn't really have to deal with like a punishment per se, kind of, but more of the mentality. And this is, I don't know. This is I feel like this is where like Marine Corps goes extra, but we're doing a run in the morning, right? And everyone's got to be, like there's a green T-shirt, green shorts, shoes, white ankle socks. Okay, white ankle socks. There's not supposed to be any logos. There's a few people that have like a Nike check mark or they got the Adidas stripes, and this gunnery sergeant just starts losing it about how, fucked up we are, how disappointed he is, how this is the worst thing ever, and then he goes in, and he like goes into this story of the 300 Spartans in the Battle of Thermopylae.
Oh no.
And he says that the reason why the Spartans won the Battle of Thermopylae is because they looked exactly the same, and the other army couldn't tell how many there were, and so they were able to win. And since we didn't have the same socks when we were going for a run on Camp Lejeune, we
the enemy would be like, I see 3 Adidas logos, like they are few in numbers.
Which, and that's the thing too, is like, so like the whole 300 spot, like, well, they lost, right? Like in the story, like they lost.
They got owned.
They got fucking owned. Like, owned. But then and like also in like real life, like yes, they also got owned. So that he was just a complete moron. But like that idea that if any little bit of deviation from what is exactly specified to you to do is death, and is punishable as if you risked life.
I did hear a story about actually what happened at Thermopylae, like some researchers covered some new evidence, and they did see that like what probably happened was there was like 3 guys in the front of the phalanx, and when the Persians came upon them, they looked down and they saw the Nike swoosh. They weren't wearing their sandals. They saw the Nike swoosh and they were like, just do it.
They were wearing slides.
They were able to break the phalanx at that point because they knew that this was the crack in the armor. There wasn't uniformity.
Yes.
So they broke the phalanx, and that's how Leonidas was killed.
Yeah.
So actually, you're wrong, Marcus. How about that?
Yeah, I think I remember seeing that in slow motion in the 300 film, Frank Miller's 300. Remember when Frank Miller was like super popular, and there was like a year of just like, it was like Sin City and 300.
Oh my God, yeah.
And like The Shadow, and it was all these movies that were kind of like they were kind of like 2D moving graphic novels.
Yeah, and like, I don't know, you're like, you said you're into films and stuff like that,
Yeah, of course.
What is that, cheating? If you got like half of the movies in slow mo, is that like cheating? You said it's like, 90-page strip. Shit, hell no.
Well, yeah,
90 pages?
If you do it in
40 pages,
most slow mo, that you're eating up like 10 minutes. I mean, there've only been like a handful of movies that I think like do slow mo really well. The original Matrix is one of those. They did that like really, really well. But I mean, they were drawing inspiration from video games. I felt like, I think, and I think that's an anime. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Manga.
Actually, Jake, this may be a good opportunity to ask. So like, I don't want to spill beans or anything, so I'll let you, but like,
yes,
you worked in Hollywood for a bit. You met some people, you were doing some like, are there any cool Hollywood stories you want to share with the chat about like people who are cool or not cool, depending upon how you're feeling?
No, fuck that. What's the weird? Let's get weird.
Or weird, yeah, weird. That's
weird.
Good. Who's fucking weird? Who'd you do a table read with? That was like a fucking weirdo or something.
And why is it Jared Leto as Morbius?
It's Morbin time.
There will be. I promise you, at some point, there will be a Jared Leto episode and his like whole cult and like the weird festival that they throw. That's definitely like worth leading into. I'm trying to think. Somebody like some of them are weird. I'm trying to think of like one that's not like all that controversial.
It doesn't have to be anyone we know either. You can just tell us like this is what makes Hollywood weird, you know?
I was taken to like a party once that like the QAnon people would like make a meal out of. Like I went to a party and it was like it was very powerful people and they had lots of like young playthings around. And I think that we were brought there as young playthings, and I don't want to like out the actor, but there was one actor who is like fairly recognizable from like your kind of 90s early thousands movie, and he realized that like me and my buddy were like way out of our league, and he came over and like protected us like the entire night. He sat with us and he smoked cigarettes and like it was fucking awesome.
Can we guess?
Somebody who I can't.
Can you tell us?
I can't. There was another time. I've got another. I will replace that with another story where I can't tell you the name. So one of the first. So I was part of this like project. It was like a short film, and I got invited to like a Christmas party at like the head of the the whoever produced the film. Like they had this Christmas party, and I went, and I went alone. And at the time I was driving the car that I had gotten right out of college, which was an '01 Hyundai Elantra, and the AC belt on it had busted. So anywhere I went, like when you turned the car on or when you drove it, it would go like it would have this horrible sound. So anyway, I went to this party and knew nobody, and it was like a bunch of like, like hobnobby, sort of not like anybody like super famous or whatever, but like, I don't know, just kind of the Hollywood people. I'm not one of them. I don't think of myself highly enough to like get along with that crowd.
No, Jake. It's that you have a heart. It's that you're like a good-hearted human being. That's why you don't fit in with those horrific, self-loathing, fucking narcissistic piles of garbage.
I wanted to be that. I mean, in some ways, in similar reasons, you got something to prove. You want the people in high school who underestimated you or whatever. Do you want to go back and be like, I fucking did it?
I go to weird fucking parties.
Yeah, I go to weird parties. So anyways, I like, did what I would at that time, what I would do in these situations when I was like felt completely out of my element is I went out I found where the smokers were. Yep. Because I was like, oh, like if you're smoking a cigarette together, you at least have something to talk about and you have one thing in common. And I went out to like the back patio, and there was two people smoking a cigarette, and I asked them if I could like borrow a lighter. I had my own lighter, of course, but like you asked to borrow, it opens up the conversation, you're talking, and the dude turned around and it was Joshua Jackson, aka Pacey from Dawson's Creek.
Oh yeah.
And he was standing with her name is Amy Smart, who was another like big 90s, early thousands actor.
I was in love with Amy Smart for a period.
I was like, oh fuck. I was like, I found like the two like celebs at this party, and I just like asked for a lighter. They were super fucking cool. I told them that I knew nobody. I was like, I don't know anybody here. I was like involved in this like this like short film or whatever, and they were so nice to me, and like they were super cool. And we kind of like hung out the rest of the night, like at the party. And then the party ended. Everybody kind of like moved to the front, and everybody's cars was being brought up from valet. You can see where this is going. And so like, Range Rover comes up, and like Josh Jackson like gets into it, and whatever. He's like, oh, I'll say goodbye. And it's like me and Amy Smart, and I'm like, oh man, like she's like way, holy shit, this is crazy. Cause I'm like, I don't know, maybe 22, 23 at the time. And then we hear this like, and it's the valet bringing my like shitty cream colored Hyundai Elantra like up the thing, and it's making all the fucking noise. And I was like, well, I was like, really nice talking to you. And I was like, got into my car and drove away, just mortified.
Milady.
I'm trying to think who else. I have been on set with Arnold Schwarzenegger, who was fucking awesome. He's big. He's like big. You know, you think that a lot of these people you meet and they're like 5'5".
Yeah,
you know,
of course. Tom Cruise,
really
right?
short.
Man,
And Arnold Schwarzenegger came on a show that I was working on, and as like a guest star, and he had his shit so together. He knew all of his lines. Now here is a funny insider. Nobody knows their lines. Literally, almost 85% of the actors, like big actors that I've seen work, are learning their lines like the second before the camera is like about to roll. They've got little printouts that are about this big that has just their parts in the script, and they like go over them and they lean. And there's also a person on set, by the way, who's got the script so that they can call out the lines once people forget. Nobody knows their lines. But Arnold Schwarzenegger came on. He knew all of his lines. He got all of his blocking. He was just like a pro, and it was like awesome to see. And like I didn't really interact with him, but he was very. I always judge who's cool in Hollywood by how they treat the crew. If you treat the crew well, like you are a king in my book. I don't care like who you are, because it's very, very few people. A lot of them, you know, they're like fake nice to the crew, but like you can tell that they think that they're better than them. And like that always like really fucking bugged me. Yeah, he was somebody awesome. I'm trying to think any other like really weird stories.
Well, and that's like cool because like Arnold is. I grew up in Columbus, and he's got like that, like his Arnold Classic is
Ted
like
Cruz.
every year in
Go
Columbus,
fuck
Ohio.
yourself.
And so like, yeah, he's like a fucking giant, but like, you know, he was like what Mr. Olympia and all that type of shit, you know, and stuff like that. So it's like, you know,
he's like an old fucking man now. And have you seen that video of that guy trying to do a double-legged drop kick on him, and he doesn't even barely notice?
Oh yeah, I saw that. He doesn't even flinch.
Like he's like, what was that? Like a fly, you know? Like the guy falls down. Like he crumples when he tries to do a double leg drop kick on Arnold, and he's just like, I'm gonna keep shaking your hand. You know, he doesn't care.
Which I think, and also my favorite movie, Predator.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites as well. The Predator and Alien series are like my mainstay. That's basically my personality, as a combination of like Aliens and Predator, Ghostbusters, and like Metal Gear, basically.
You know, Jake, you brought up like the lines thing.
Oh, and Calvin and Hobbes. Sorry.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah.
You brought up the lines thing, Jake, and now all I can think about is, and someone had the same thought and brought up in chat. Like, is the Jim Caviezel episode you guys did where he made the fucking the PAs or whatever like write his lines on a little card that he could reference regularly.
Yeah.
And they had an argument one time about how they're not gonna do this, write this line on this card for Jim. It would be too much of an insult to his intelligence. And he said, "I need it, do it," and it was literally just the word "no" and a period.
Yeah. That episode was crazy, and that guy is a nightmare. Like, just hearing about when he, you know, because like when you're doing stunts or whatever, and you've got a guy who is like so method that you don't know whether or not if he's really going to hit you. Like that is the worst working environment that you can absolutely be in as an actor. And so like my heart goes out to like anybody that worked with Jim Caviezel, because if you're entering into a scene with somebody and you don't know if he's going to like knock your chair over to the ground while you're supposed to be like handcuffed to it or whatever, like that's just not safe. Like the whole reason you get into this thing is so you can play pretend, so you don't have to like actually actually put your life on the line and, do things that, you gentlemen have done for real, potentially. The reason you become an actor is like, so you can play pretend, you can do it in a safe place. And so for somebody to come on set and be so like, wild that like, you do not know like what they're going to do is just, I can't even imagine how awful that is.
And for reference, Marcus, they did this whole episode on Jim Caviezel because he is a QAnon psycho. But when they put out like a call, like, hey, does anyone know about Jim Caviezel? Like all these people reached out, a ton of them that had worked with him.
Yeah.
On Person of Interest, mostly, right? On his
show. More than happy to talk to. More than happy to talk to us about crazy things that guy had done on set.
Like literally, like they were like, okay, you're an FBI agent, right? You're driving up to a crime scene, so just drive the car up, get out, and say, what do we got? And he like nearly killed 4 people every time they let him have a car. Like he would like fucking whip up and like fucking pull the handbrake and shit, and then be like cast and crew like in the way. And they had to be like, okay, well Jim can't drive the cars anymore because they were like, Jim, why would you do that? Like he's just pulling up casually, and he's like, "No, my character wouldn't do that. My character would come in hot." He's insane. He's an insane person. These are the type of people that, like, the Hollywood types have like, and all these people just had to. He was the star of the show. They just had to deal with it.
Yeah, you just like have to deal with it. I'm very lucky in that I never worked on anything with like a truly crazy person. Like the situations that I was in, everybody, not me obviously, but like all of the main players were making so much money, and that they were just like, they realized like how unfairly overpaid they were, that they were like really sweet and nice to like they were really cool to everybody.
That's not always the case. Some people think they deserve it.
No, not always the case.
I mean, like, but like that, like, why more? Why would like more people? Why would people? Because it's like that's what it's like. Who does this guy got to piss off?
Yeah.
Well,
it's like,
I mean, for Jim Caviezel, I'd say that he has pissed people off, and he's now making movies about QAnon, Marcus. Like, he's starring in the movie
Sound of Freedom.
Yep.
Is the QAnon movie, and I think Travis disagrees with me, but I think that movie is going to come out and it's going to actually have QAnon shit in it. Like I think that you're going to see the underground tunnels and like the Adrena farms, like because why not? He believes in it.
Should we watch?
But remains to be seen. Remains how QAnon-y it will be.
I think we should watch the trailer for that movie here on.
Is there a trailer out?
There's a trailer, and I'm pretty sure you see the tunnels, dude.
No shit. Come on.
Yeah, no,
I have a buddy, by the way. I have a buddy of mine. We came to LA, like a high school friend of mine, and we came to LA to like both be actors. And then he realized like right away, he went to like 2 auditions and he was like, this is absolute horror. Like I do not want to do this. Like this is impossible. And he like got into a mail room at one of the agencies, and now he's like a very successful, like high powered Hollywood agent. And I'm like calling him being like, hey man, like find out what you can about like this Jim Caviezel movie. Like who's making it? Like who's distributing this shit? Like do they know it's a fucking QAnon movie? And when he came, he did a little bit of initial research and texted me. He was like, I know the producers of this. He was like, they're pretty sus.
Wow.
I mean, I gotta be honest. Like, I thought the trailer was pretty dope. I was like, wait, what? This it's a really well cut here. Well, let's watch it together.
Yeah, let's watch it.
I'm gonna share screen with you guys on Skype right now, and because I know Marcus hasn't seen this yet, but I have. I thought you had seen this, Jake.
I don't think I've seen it.
This trailer, it came out in 2021.
Forgotten, so it's basically like I'm seeing it for the first time.
It's very sus that the movie has not come out because they released this trailer. Like I really want to see this movie.
I think it's in development hell because the people because of all the Caviezel stuff that came out, and they don't know what to do with it. But
well, let's take a look, boys. Huh?
Let's see.
don't think I can do this job, Tim. As soon as I lay down, all I see are those kids' faces. How long you been doing this?
God.
12 years. How do you do it? It is the fastest growing international crime network that the world has ever seen. It has already passed the illegal arms trade, and soon it's going to pass the drug trade.
Oh
Señor
my
Timoteo.
God.
Tú rescatas niños, ¿verdad? Quizá puedas ayudarme a encontrar a mi hermana.
Oh my God.
Imagine walking into a room right now, seeing an empty bed. What will we do?
We're Homeland Security. You know we can't go off rescuing kids in Colombia.
This job tears you to pieces. This is my one chance to put those pieces back together.
We're talking about extracting an 11-year-old girl from an army of rebels.
That's the actor from Ghostbusters 2.
I'm talking about rescuing hundreds of kids. She could be a block down the road, or she could be in Moscow, Bangkok, LA.
Over 2 million children a year are being sucked into the deepest recesses of hell. If we do nothing, someday it's gonna reach the likes of you. What if this was your daughter?
Wherever I go, I find my way home.
I mean, right off the bat,
So bad.
right off the bat in the trailer, you get the door kick.
Yeah, of them arresting the pedophile.
You get the fucking pasty, skeleton thin white dude.
Yep.
John Oliver. John
Yeah.
Oliver.
All mullets and mustache equal pedophile.
Look, the doll. The dolls.
Yeah,
I feel like
this is gonna be so bad.
John Oliver's got to get real pissed off at the amount of times he gets used as the pedophile archetype, you know?
And then look, it's just like Bolivia, 7 to 12-year-olds, 8 to 6-year-olds, Chile, Bolivia, Peru.
That's like the underground adrenochrome farms right there. It's just a matter of, are they going to show them injecting the kids in the neck and withdrawing the blood? Like, is it going to go there? Is my question.
That's a good question. I was thinking this is pure QAnon shit, but you're right. Like, that's a step further.
Are they going to go? Because already, this is the kind of movie that like Mark Levin on like AM 870 will be like, folks, this weekend you gotta go see Sound of Freedom, starring Jim Caviezel. Powerful film addressing something that I know that we are all very concerned about: child trafficking. And it's like they do this on the conservative. Like, always, used to always hear whatchamacallit, these commercials for these like super Christian movies, you know, like and it's fucking insane how many big actors are in this. And I wonder if like some of these actors are like, wait a minute, like Caviezel's like QAnon pill. I mean, I can't imagine that you don't know that from working with him. Apparently, in our episode, Julian said that somebody who was on set said that Caviezel would carry around Mein Kampf and just like he had it with him, like he was just carrying it with him because he wanted to start discussions with people about it, like.
And they called it when they would talk to him, and they would be forced to sit there and listen to his fucking incoherent babbling. They called it the cavortex, getting sucked into the cavortex. You just had to sit there, and he would be like, Hitler had some good ideas too. I
mean, he had some good ideas too. It's like, oh my God, who feels? Even if you believe it, the fact that you want to go out publicly and have that conversation with a stranger or a coworker or a friend, like, holy shit.
You know what it just shows me though is that like there are a lot of people out there that would consider themselves intelligent who like would want to have that conversation, and it's one of those like those markers that you can be like, oh, this person is a complete idiot. a complete dullard. You know what I mean? Like, because that's what Jim Caviezel is. Like, he thinks he's smarter than most people, and he's willing to, and he's also like, I'm willing to talk these things out and stuff. People are just uncomfortable. That's why I don't want to talk about them. They're not smart enough to actually reveal the truths hidden beneath. But like everything about him, about every person who's encountered him, shows that he is a complete and utter moron. He is dumber than a box of rocks. And so like it's almost like what do you call it? It's fulfilling a prophecy of like that, like, oh, people who do want to say like Hitler had some good ideas too, those are morons who consider themselves intellectuals. You know, those are the type of debate bros or and pseudo intellectuals who like fantasize and romanticize the discourse, you know.
And I just think it's because like they want to debate that shit because on some human level they know they're wrong, and so they want to. Anytime they're trying to convince somebody of something. To me, it almost feels like they're trying to convince themselves. Really, you know, it's like somebody in the chat mentioned Mel Gibson still being working, and that's true. If Mel Gibson can still be working, that tells you all you need to know. I do have an indirectly crazy story about Mel Gibson. Ooh. And maybe this will be a good place to end it because I got to jump off and get some supper going. But and then we got to do this again because Dick, we got to get to your entry point, how Metal Gear Solid inspired you to join us. So we'll have to do a part two of this hangout because this has been really fucking frightening but fun and fascinating. So I was working for this guy who was a television producer and for a really long time. And I worked with him on a couple shows, and then I worked for him personally for years. And we went to a writing conference once, and one of the speakers at the writing conference was Joe Esterhaus, who's like a very famous screenwriter. He wrote let me just look it up. So, because I can't remember off the top of my head.
That name sounds familiar to me.
Yeah. Yeah, he did Basic Instinct, Nowhere to Run, Showgirls.
Damn.
Those are like coke fueled movies there.
Just some of the big names from the those 90s blockbusters.
He was big late 80s, early 90s. And he and Mel Gibson were right before he gave the conference, they were supposed to be working on Mel Gibson's idea for a film about the Maccabees, which is like the Jewish army from, I don't know, it's the Maccabees, I don't know, like part of like the Hanukkah myth. I don't know. See, this is where my bad Jewedness is shining through.
I know how Mel Gibson feels about the Jews.
Well, which is weird. Wait, hold on. I'm gonna look up Maccabees really quick so that we've got a better. So at least Maccabees, a group of Jewish rebel warriors who took control of Judea, which at the time was part of the Seleucid Empire. Okay, so Jewish warriors. Weird that Mel Gibson wants to do a movie about that, but okay. So we got to this like writing panel or whatever, and Joe Esterhaus basically opened it up with because it had just been reported that he and Mel Gibson had parted ways, and and so somebody was like, Joe, do you want to talk about, would you mind talking about what happened with the Maccabees script or whatever? And Joe Esterhaus was like, okay. He was like, I only have an hour that I'm supposed to speak. He goes, do you want to hear about how I got into the film business, or do you guys want to hear about Mel Gibson? And everybody was like, Mel Gibson. And so he proceeded to tell this insane story about how Mel Gibson flew Joe Esterhaus and his family out to Mel Gibson's private island in Puerto Rico or Costa Rica somewhere. Mel Gibson has a private island essentially. You can only
Got it.
You can only get there by helicopter. And so he flew his family in, and it was supposed to be this they were going to work on the movie, but his family would be in this amazing living quarters, and it would be kind of a vacation. He was like, okay, cool. He said the moment they got there, they knew shit was fucked up. Mel Gibson would do crazy shit. Like he would run screaming, chasing like his help, like the people who worked in his mansion. Like he would chase them around the dinner table, like screaming at them and like just saying this wild stuff. It got to the point where Esterhaus, his son, who was like 15 or 16 at the time, was so scared of Mel Gibson that he found a golf club in the house and slept like with it under the bed because he was worried that Mel Gibson would like come in and like attack him in the middle of the night. Apparently, and this is all what Esterhaus said. He said that Mel Gibson would say like horribly violent things about his like ex-girlfriend to his son, like his 15-year-old son, saying stuff like, if I had the chance, I'd cut off a head and shit down a throat, or like weird like shit like that to like a 15 or 16-year-old boy. And it basically got to the point where Esterhaus basically had to like beg Mel Gibson to like let them leave the island, because they were essentially trapped there.
Yeah.
And he for an hour he talked about like what essentially sounds like a fucking horror movie where like you're trapped on this like tropical like compound, and like with this like basically with like Jack from The Shining like after he goes crazy.
Yeah, this is like a most dangerous game scenario where Mel Gibson's like, I hate screenwriters. Go into the woods. You have an hour. I'm coming after you.
Yeah, and so like when all of the stuff came out about all of the phone calls and like the shit, all and the shit that Gibson said to the police officer, and like I was like, oh yeah, that tracks. Like I've never heard one story about him that doesn't frame him as like a like murderous psychopath. Which is wild that he keeps working.
Yeah, actually, like he makes different movies now that are like, they're a little off the beaten path kind of thing because of what he's done and stuff. He's still like his insanity shines through when he acts too, which kind of like makes him interesting as an actor. But one that I did watch, one of his more recent movies.
Was it the Santa Claus one?
No. Fat Man. I did want to watch that. I had that queued up at one point for us for Left Flank to watch it for one of our pods. I was like, oh, Christmas time. This might be a good one because Walton Goggins is in that one too, which I love.
I love Walton Goggins. He was just cast as the lead in the new Fallout series, which makes me think it could be good.
Oh shit, he's great in everything. Yeah, I love him. No, but I watched a movie with him and how the fuck am I forgetting his name? Fucking Wedding Crashers.
Owen Wilson?
No, the other one. What's the fuck his name?
Vince Vaughn.
Vince Vaughn. Yeah. Him and Vince Vaughn are cops. It's this very gritty, very gory cop like crime drama called To the Bone.
Oh, I remember seeing like the tile for that like in the streaming services as it like comes by.
And I gotta say, it was a good movie. It was.
Yeah.
It was. Oh no, it's not called To the Bone. What am I thinking? It's Dragged Across Concrete. Yeah, exactly. It's not that one.
Dragged Across Concrete.
What's To the Bone? What am I thinking of? To the Bone is a different movie.
They all got these kind of names now. It's all the same movie basically.
No, it's called Dragged Across Concrete. Exactly. That's the movie I'm thinking of. Thank you. Thank you. Bone Tomahawk, same director. That must be it. Overzealous euthanasiast. I appreciate that. No, but it is really hard to watch. There is some horrific violence in it, and they're meant to be like these like very violent cops, but they're flawed, but like they mean well. But like it's one of those movies that I think is like made by a very like conservative dude, and Vince, you can tell Vince Vaughn and Mel Gibson kind of are high in their own supply. But like what I love about like that kind of shit is like I love cop shows that are like an unintentional indictment of policing, like Justified with Walton Goggins, like fucking Boyd Crowder and fucking Raylan Givens just kill 90% of the people they encounter. You know what I mean? Like Raylan is just the coolest guy in the world who is a fucking complete and utter psychopath who kills everyone he meets. Like someone did the math.
Justified.
Yeah, it was that's how the show starts. He sits down with a dude at dinner who he says killed his partner, and he's like, I'm going to kill you in 10 seconds. You got 10, I told you to leave town. 10, 9, and then he makes the guy pull his gun and then he kills him, you know, like, and he's, oh, it was justified. And that's like every scene in the rest of the show. And it's a really good show. It's a really good show.
It's tough. It's tough, you know, you have to make that decision, right? To separate the content from like the person. Cause like one of my favorite movies of all time is Signs. Like I think I'm going to go out on a limb here. I think M. Night Shyamalan is like one of the most underrated filmmakers. And this is why. He doesn't always get it right, but his shit is so original, or at least feels so original in the kind of like swath of crap that like gets released, that I'm like, yeah, fucking go for it. Like, show me. Like, I just watched Old not too long ago and then watched it a second time, and I was like, this is fucking awesome, because it's a really interesting story. And I loved Signs. I thought Mel Gibson's performance in Signs was like fantastic. Both him and Joaquin Phoenix are incredible in that movie. And also the movie, I think, serves as a really interesting allegory for people becoming radicalized through conspiracy theories, like via the Joaquin Phoenix character. But like, it's tough because like I know that Mel Gibson like hates Jews, and like I know that like that's a proven fact. If you've watched Passion of the Christ, or just listened to some of his recorded phone calls, or listened to some court records of things that he said while being arrested.
The Jews are responsible for all the wars in the world.
Yeah, of course. And you've got him like at the Trump rally, like a couple of years back, like they zoomed in on him in the crowd, and he's like saluting Trump, like this a bad guy. But like, yeah, it's tough. A good movie is a good movie. And I am, and it might not be the healthiest thing, but I am of the belief that it is okay. I've given myself permission to enjoy the content while not endorsing the personalities behind it. I mean, in the same way that like, I am totally with you guys in terms of my complete disdain and sadness at the sort of militarized country that we live in, and the things that our country does overseas and basically everywhere. But like, I love playing like military simulators. It's a weird piece of dissonance that I don't know if I don't know why I'm like that. It's probably sounds weird to you guys, but for me, like, it's relaxing. Like, I love playing Arma and like communicating with a squad and like working together and waiting in the woods. And then that moment when like something pops off, and it's like you described for real, which is these long swaths of boredom punctuated by horror. Or maybe it was Dick who said that, but like, and obviously it's because I haven't lived it, but like, there is something weird about that. And it just goes to show like how fucked up we all are based on the amount of funding that has been put into us to bring, to get us to co-sign this kind of behavior. And like, I think in some ways, like, I'm a residual of that. And it's weird. It's weird to sort of think about on like a bigger scale than just your immediate sort of entertainment or whatever.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I still enjoy a lot of that shit too, Jake. And like, to me, it's like, it's fantasy. It's something entirely different.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're like, those games are played all over the world by kids in countries that, aren't, don't have military bases all over the place. Their societies aren't riddled with all types of gun deaths.
Will never shoot a gun in their life.
Yeah. Really, that's the thing. It is fantasy, And I mean, like, that's the thing is like, I'm never gonna be in a fucking Italian man jumping through a little fucking sewer. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I can't say
like,
yeah.
For some people, it's just a video game, and that's fine. It sucks that your society's been wrapped around you like this.
Yeah, that's
where like question playing a video game. It's like, what are the ramifications? What does this mean about a great society? It's like, you're just trying to have fun.
Yeah. And you said sorry to cut you off, Dick, but you said something I think is really important. You said it's not your fault that your society is wrapped around you like this. Yeah. And I think that's really, you just touched on, I think, kind of in a lot of ways the main sort of like premise of our podcast is like it's not your fault that society is wrapped around you like this, but at the same time, like it helps to learn and detangle why we feel wrapped up in the way we do, because otherwise you just go insane and you have all of this stuff that you don't really know what to do with, and it comes out in unhealthy ways.
Yeah, I was gonna say about the detaching the creator from the art or something. Like when people get mad about, like, Sopranos glorifies violence, or you can tell I'm watching a lot of Sopranos lately. But like,
it's probably one of the best TV shows of all time.
It's amazing. It's absolutely incredible. Like I love every second of it. But like when they say like, or it makes Italians look bad, it's like, it's so reactionary. It reminds me of like, like the guy who's like so uncomfortable with his sexuality that like if any gay shit happens around him, he like gets mad and like wants to fight someone.
Yeah.
like oh, that's gay. Are you saying I'm gay? Like,
yeah,
gets gets super pissed off and like is it's like, what does this say about you, man? That you think that like this is about you and like your, like it's the kind of thing where it's like, no, you're mad about this particular piece of art, or like I'm very comfortable in my politics when I believe is right and wrong, and like I can sit down and watch Dragged Across Concrete and be like, man, I don't think Mel Gibson was a good guy, in real life or his character, but like I liked the way he acted in that movie. It was good, James Gandolfini does amazing as Tony Soprano. Tony Soprano is an awful man who hurts everyone around him, but like, doesn't he have these amazing human moments that I can really relate to as another human? It's just like this weird thing where like, if you like, it makes me question people's like emotional intelligence, I guess, their inability to do that, like the reactionary nature with where this is what the debate about Starship Troopers still, people are like, Starship Troopers is fascist propaganda, and like, well, that's the point, man. Like that's, that's the point, is that it's bad in that very specific way. You've identified it, just take it one step further. And like you just said too, Jake, like that's a lot of what happens with QAnon, is like, you have identified a problem and gone in the very wrong direction with what you think is analysis and solution to the problem.
Yes, exactly. The problem is very real.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is very real. People aren't, I mean, some people are dumb, but most people aren't. They know when something feels wrong to them, and they look at the system that we have and they know that it's fucking them in some way. And the suppression of true leftist ideology, well, where does that fucking lead you? And this takes us right back to the very beginning of this conversation. It wasn't until I found true left voices like like Chapo, and there was other people, and just honestly talking to Julian, who was very involved in DSA and knew a lot about it and had a lot to say about it. That was a political viewpoint that I had never been exposed to. And if I hadn't been, I would be looking for the people who were, that felt like at the very least they were admitting some semblance of truth. And if you think that somebody's got a little bit of truth in what they're saying, you're willing to accept the shit that's not true, the crazy shit that they're also tacking onto it. And I think that's where a lot of people end up. When you have a suppression of a real left, you are going to see more people radicalize further right, which is then pulling your left further right, and that's how we've ended up where we are today. And I said it in the QAnon documentary, and I got a ton of shit for it, but I said, I think that the Republicans are now QAnon, and the Democrats are now what the old school Republicans used to be, and that's how the Overton window has shifted. And I still believe that to this day. I think that was right on the money.
It's funny you got shit for that.
I got so much shit for that.
Well,
And it's
was
like
it equal
oh,
parts?
man.
It was equal parts getting shit for that, and then people just being like, feet, Jake,
Yeah,
feet,
it was
please.
that. Yeah, it was that. Yeah.
Jake showed his feet in the HBO documentary about QAnon, Marcus. So people,
which was
freaking
an accident. Julian has a no shoes policy in his house, and it was hot that day. So I showed up wearing sandals, and so when they filmed the bit, I was barefoot, and it was an unflattering angle, and the rest is history. I now have like a wiki feet posted.
I thought it was sexy. I liked it.
Yeah, it was funny. It was weird because I also had a hat and sunglasses on, like I was in disguise because I didn't think the documentary was going to go anywhere, and I knew that most of the people in my other profession, wouldn't take too kindly to somebody who had a podcast with QAnon in the title. So I was trying to keep it separated, and
well, now it's all
not working out so well.
Yeah, it's all history now.
All history.
We'll let you go, Jake. But like you said, we got to do this again.
Yeah, absolutely. I could talk for like hours with you guys.
And I think it's like you got our perspective, but obviously our partner in crime, Erica, is not here. And I would love for you. There's a whole aspect of the military we didn't explore at all, which is like it's an entirely different animal being a woman in the military and all the awful shit that you have to fucking deal with on that side. And Erica dealt with it all.
I can't even begin to imagine.
Yes.
Well, and we haven't mentioned yet, it is the first day of Pride Month, and I don't know if y'all saw the Marine Corps.
Oh God!
Did a little Pride post.
Fuck, I saw that. Yeah.
Where like it's the Full Metal Jacket
with what
helmet.
You're about to say. I'm so afraid with what you're about to say.
It's the Full Metal Jacket helmet. It's like an homage to the Full Metal Jacket, like that poster, right? So it's the helmet, and it's got the band. The band says "Proud to Serve"
instead of "Born to Kill,"
and it's got the like bandolier, but each different bullet is one of the colors on the rainbow.
It's a real thing. The Marine Corps posted.
It's like a bullet for every letter in the thing. It's like
there's the lesbian bullet, then the gay bullet, trans bullet.
That is fucked up. So, despite that, happy Pride Month. Happy Pride Month.
Thank you for coming and like, awesome conversation. Except about the Metal Gear Solid shit. I'm gonna have to just like read about it, just so at least I can.
You don't need to read. I can tell you all about it, Marcus. Let's just sit down. We'll crack a few brews.
Yeah, Dick will corner you. He will corner you in a room at a party like somebody who just came back from Burning Man and tell you like all of the Metal Gear lore and like which boss fights were like the most memorable.
Oh my god!
You know what'd be funny, Jake? If we did a whole stream where we're like we sat down and we tried to explain to Marcus like what the Metal Gear games were about and the lore. And like and had him stop us and ask questions whenever he wanted, and that
would be good.
Honestly, if you guys paid for the shrooms that I would have to take to make that somewhat interesting, I'd do it. I'd buy it.
What we could do is we could get an emulator. I could download an emulator and play. We could actually play the first Metal Gear. And explain it while we're playing it and hold Marcus captive. That would also be cool.
Well, this would be just
because I don't think you can get them on Steam. I think you either have to have an emulator or I would have to do it on PlayStation and get like a capture card, which I don't know how to do.
Me either. Yeah, I've never played the original Nintendo ones. I've started at MGS at Metal Gear Solid and worked my way up. So yeah, we could do that, and we can write it off. It's a tax write-off because we're writing a script for the movie.
Yes, absolutely.
There we go.
Jordan, if you're listening, hire us.
Yeah, we're gonna push this. We're gonna push this shit. Jake and I are gonna write the script, but Jordan has to pay us first on spec. I mean, we're just doing research until then, right?
Sadly, that literally never happens. I have never, ever in my life, I've written hundreds and hundreds of pages. I probably have like 6 or 7 full screenplays that I've written throughout my entire life. Didn't get paid one single penny to do any writing. The only writing I ever got paid for up until the podcast started to take off was I would write commercial treatments and like music video treatments for a friend who was a music video director, and that was it. That was the only money I ever made from writing. Being like, a guy walks up to the Kmart doors, there's a promotion on the just like the worst shit ever.
Nice.
Well, let's get you paid doing something else, Jake. We'll brainstorm this. We'll do the stream again, and in the meantime, you can just convince QAA to have an MGS episode too. All right.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm on it. It's the screenplay. It's going to be 400 pages. We're going to bring in the Nolan brothers.
Yes.
They're going to be, Jonathan Nolan. He's notorious for turning in 400-page first drafts. Metal Gear has to be that, and that's the last draft. Actually, it's going to be a 5-hour movie.
I mean, I think are we talking about franchise, like some like Lord of the Rings-esque type things,
Absolutely.
3 or 4 epics.
Yes, everything is a franchise now. So what we're going to have to do is it's going to be, here's how we'll structure it. Here's how we can sell it to the executives. We are going to see Snake through 5 different wars. So we'll start in World War II. Okay, he's like maybe he's like 16 and like snuck in, lied about his age to be enlisted. And then the sequel will be like, Vietnam, and then it'll be like, Middle Eastern conflict. So each movie will be a different period piece taking place in a different war.
Like
that's a decent way to structure it.
The beginning, the Wolverine Origins movie.
Yes, exactly.
Exactly. Like he's running up, he's on D-Day, he's fucking in the jungle of Vietnam. He's fucking destroying a Ville with saber tooth.
And Snake can be endless because he's a clone essentially. So yes, actually we can do as many movies as we want. They'll like that. They'll like that we can be like, oh well, the character doesn't even have to age if you don't want him to. Like you never have to, it can always be like a different version of like Liquid Snake or whatever. Like you could find a way to kind of do Snake throughout history, but there is an overarching sort of like secret organization that is at the heart of like each of these conflicts, so that you have the plot of the movie where Snake is solving a kind of immediate conflict over the course of your 96 pages or whatever, 120 pages, but then throughout the sequels there's like a overall sort of enemy that he's like working towards.
A big boss, if you will.
A big boss, yeah. There you go.
Mm-hmm. See, this is
okay. I need to go. If you guys want to keep
I have to go
talking,
all right. Good night, guys. It's been amazing.
Good night, Jake. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Jake.
Everyone, listen to QAnon Anonymous. It's an amazing podcast. Please do.
Thank you. Yes, come melt your brain with us.
Marcus, can you rate us out?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Yeah, rate.
It'd be nice if Julian was on. That'd be funny, right?
Oh, but yeah, you could rate into Julian.
That would be really funny. But I think he's actually. I think he's doing like I think he's like out of town on some family shit.
Liv is going.
Oh, nice.
Oh, good. Perfect. Yeah, send us to Liv, would you?
Thanks everybody for coming and hanging out. It was a pleasure reading your messages.
We have a good chat.
Yeah, great chat. Fantastic chat.
I don't tolerate any bullshit up in here.
Yeah, no bullshit.
Especially when
I wish chat was more adverse to Metal Gear Solid talk. I wish anytime it came out there.
Do you know our
like,
chat at all, Marcus?
Boo. Can I just talk about what I dream? What I wish? Fuck.
You're shitting on our project. It's unacceptable. I told you. The moment that I get that Metal Gear money, this is why I'm going to say
30 minutes, at least 30 fucking minutes about Metal Gear Solid.
You're probably right. Yeah, it's probably a good 30, maybe even 40 minutes.
That's like
unconscionable.
You will I will abandon Left Flank Vents so fast when the paycheck from Metal Gear comes in. I swear to God, Marcus. This is why.
Okay.
This is why.
Is the thing showing up? Can I rate out now?
Yeah.
Is this good?
You can.
All right.
Goodbye, everyone.
Later.
All right. Bye, everybody. Take care. Peace.